Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has a mother figure Tsunade, tsume and harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Akira13 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Disclaimer, I don't own Naruto. The legendary Kyuubi no Kitsune stood swinging its 9 tails, swatting the Konoha ninja away like flies. They had been at battle with the fox for over 6 hours and their numbers were declining rapidly. The remaining jounin quickly turned to their superior to see what they should be doing. Yamada Taishu, nothing's working, what do you want us to do? Hold it off, Minato will be here soon. I want you to split up into 4 groups. 1 group I want you to go behind it, group 2 I want at the left, group 3 to the right and group 4 stay here. Once you're all in place let off jutsu like there's no tomorrow, chances are there might not be. The ninja quickly separated and head off to do their assigned duties. Come on Kushina. Wake up. Don't you dare leave me here, Naruto needs you, don't die on us. Tsunade screamed as she desperately tried to heal her friend. With the stresses of the Kyuubi and Minato having to go out and fight it sent Kushina into labor. She got through the pregnancy without too many complications but she was bleeding heavily. Transfusions were being done but until they stopped the bleeding the blood wasn't going to stay. Tsunade continued to yell at the doctors and nurses for them to get more blood as she continued to try and heal the wound. She had come back to Konoha for the birth of her friend's child. Although she was keen not to come back, she knew that she had to be there for at least the birth. She was glad that she had come back. Otherwise another doctor would have probably given up on her by now. Minato had been in 30 minutes prior while Kushina was unconscious and therefore wasn't aware of what he was going to do to their son. If she had been awake and aware of what Minato planned on doing it would have made her situation all the worse. Tsunade stood there continuously pouring healing chakra into the woman's body. She had lost too many already. There was no way she was losing Kushina as well. That and she didn't want to have to see Naruto grow up without both his parents. It was bad enough he was going to lose his father. He needed at least his mother for love and support. And she'd be damned before she deprived the child of that. After the wound had fully closed and she had checked for any other injuries, either external or internal, she gave her more blood to replenish all that she had lost. The pregnancy was grueling and with the imminent danger of the Kyuubi it made it a whole lot worse. 10 minutes after the blood was given her stats started to steady to an acceptable level. Now that her job was done all she could do was sit there and wait for the bad news. The news that the Yondaime Hokage was dead and that his son was the container for the king of the Bijou, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. She had to chuckle. To Minato the Shinigami would be a more pleasant sight than his wife would be when she finds out. Her apprentice Shizen sat on the couch next to her offering support where necessary. While too inexperienced to participate tonight in the actual childbirth and healing, the support she did give was immensely helpful. She would definitely turn into a fine medic. The Yondaime stood upon the head of Gamabunta next to his friend and right-hand man, Hirono Yamada and the Sandaime to assist in the actual sealing. In his arms lay his newborn son wrapped up in the hospital blankets. As he made the last-minute preparations for the ceremony he took a quick glance up to the battlefield and was saddened at the sight. Body parts lay strewn across the grass. The bodies of husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, cousins and so on lay lifeless on the ground. He then looked up further and took in the full sight of the beast. It seemed to be disorientated, as though it wanted to be there but at the same time didn't. He was confused at the sight of it thrashing around but didn't have time to think any more of it. With the last preparations in place he urged the boss Toad to approach the beast. Yamada Sarutobi, it's been good but I need you two to get off now. I left a box with everything I want Naruto to have. Make sure Kushina knows to give it to him. Farewell my friends. And with that he turned and faced the demon, barely hearing the farewells and regrets that his friends sent him. Once he made sure that only he and his son were on the Toad he started going through hand seals, fast but not too fast as to throw caution to the wind. As the Toad covered the final meters between them and the fox, Minato screamed out the name of his final assault. Shiki Fujin. A man sat up in his bed smiling warmly at the sight of his wife and child asleep safely in the bed. He had been one of the lucky ones. He watched on as his friends and acquaintances were slaughtered by the demon, and he only truly survived thanks to the years of his experience under his belt. Not that it seemed to help the others. He looked to the left to see the moonlight shining in through the window accentuating his wife's beautiful features. Her pink hair had a slight glow, and her lips looked even sweeter than they did during the day. It was certainly a sight to behold. He next looked over to his daughter. While only a few months old he knew she would be just as beautiful as his mother. He recalled the battle that had taken place just yesterday. It still shocked him how the battle turned out. Not that he was disappointed, far from it, he just knew what should have happened and why they didn't. Ah well, you just have to accept these blessings when they come. Bright light. That was the first thing he noticed as he opened his eyes. Bright white room and annoyingly bright light. Seemed appropriate for where he was supposed to be. Doesn't mean that he liked the situation. He was wondering when the hell something was going to happen. He could accept being dead, he did it for the good of his people. But there was no way in hell he was going to sit there bored for the rest of eternity. He went to sit up and move but felt sore and weak, so due to not being able to do anything about it he just lay there as he was. He figured that he'd been laying there for about half an hour before the door to his room opened up and in walked Tsunade. He lightly chuckled. Followed me to the afterlife, old hag? Tsunade stood there trying to calm herself down before she put her chakra-enhanced fist through his face. Baka! Don't think you can insult me because you're injured. Dead? You mean dead? Although he was already aware, the realization sort of stung. Never again would he wake at his wife's side. He wouldn't get to see his son grow up. Stupid fox. Apparently you should be dead. Something happened though. The fox appears to have been sealed, but you're still alive. Everyone wants to know what happened, Tsunade stated as she moved over to the bed and started examining his charts. Minato sat there in shock for a moment. There was no way he could call on the Shinigami, have it seal away the demon of all demons and come out alive. Something was up, he just didn't know what. Is there something wrong with the seal? How is Naruto? He frantically asked, once again trying to move, only to have his efforts cause more pain. Stop moving! You suffered extreme chakra exhaustion and your body was in pretty bad shape. You can't just move after barely 24 hours. Minato nodded in recognition before asking, how are Kushina and Naruto? Kushina was in pretty bad shape for a while. I managed to fix her up, but she won't be able to have any more children after that. I'm sorry, Minato. He took in the information and slowly nodded. Otherwise the two are fine. The only physical change I noticed with Naruto after the sealing was 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek. They make him look cute. She finished smiling gently. Thank you, Tsunade. No problem, brat. But don't expect me to always be here for you. Although she loved the sight of the new blonde brat, she had no connection to it aside from it being Kushina's kid. They weren't related and she hadn't taught her. They had just become good friends through Jiraiya and Minato. She really wanted to leave the damn village, as soon as the 3 of them were healed, of course. Tsunade, what's Naruto going to do without his godmother around? Godmother? Didn't know he had one. After everything you've done for us, I don't think there's anyone better. Naruto is going to need you. If he's anything like me or Kushina, he's going to need the world's best medic to heal him. Tsunade felt weird on the inside. You really mean that? She'd felt close to Minato and Kushina for a while, but she didn't think they were that close. She'd be honored to be the kid's godmother, but she'd need to think about the staying thing. Of course I do. You've helped us out a lot over the years. Without you or Jiraiya-sensei, who knows where we would be. Tsunade smiled as her eyes watered up. Thanks, kid. She then ruffled his hair. But I'm going to have to think it over first, okay? He nodded. I understand. She pulled the covers off of him to examine his body. What are you doing? He asked, alarmed. I'm a medic, mean you're hurt. I'm doing a full examination to see where you're hurt, she said, smirking. At the same time, I get to see what you're packing down there. Meanwhile, Sarutobi sat in the Hokage's chair once again. One day back on the job and he had to deal with his prodigal student's defection. They had been suspicious of him for a while, but it wasn't until today when he had kidnapped Mitarashi Anko and fled the city that their worries confirmed. Sarutobi didn't have a chance to deal with him. He seemed to have disappeared in all the commotion with the Kyuubi and taken an innocent 7-year-old girl with him. They had completely searched the laboratory that they knew about, but apart from various bodies and body parts, nothing linking to his actual activities was found. A sick freak he is, but he's a smart one. He knew that any trace of evidence could have been dangerous for him, and as such he had cleaned up after himself well. Add that to the fact that he had to deal with the aftermath of the attack. Things were never better. He had to make sure that the village didn't appear weak, so he had to keep accepting missions. He also had to assure that the Kyuubi was in fact defeated and that the Yondaime was still alive, just injured, which still puzzled the old man. He decided to leave the decision of whether to tell the civilians the truth about the Kyuubi up to Minato and Kushina. That was one decision that he wasn't going to make. Perhaps if things had been different he may have needed to. He was just glad they weren't. Hundreds of ninja died that night, and all were to be acknowledged at the memorial service within the next few days. The Namikaze were down to their final 3 members and a couple of the other major clans weren't looking too good either. He was glad that Minato and Kushina had survived. He would hate to have seen what Naruto would have to put up with without them. He was just going over the plans for the memorial service when Jiraiya came bursting through his window. Sarutobi-sensei? What are you doing here? Where's Minato? Jiraiya asked, concerned. He was quite aware it was no easy feat trying to defeat a Bijou and feared the worst. Minato is in hospital. Tsunade is taking care of him as we speak, he said as he pulled out his pipe and lit it. He used the Shiki Fujin and sealed the beast into Naruto. Somehow he survived. No one knows how he did it. He survived the Shiki Fujin? He asked, shocked to the core. There was no way you could survive that. Sarutobi nodded. I want you to go to the hospital and visit Naruto and Kushina. She needs some support right now, and I would like you to check on Naruto's seal to make sure that there is nothing wrong. My fear is that if there was an issue with the technique, that perhaps the seal won't work as it was intended. Right, I'll head there now. He quickly made his way to the hospital, not giving his sensei the chance to finish what he wanted to say. He still didn't know about Orochimaru. After checking to see what room she was in, Jiraiya quickly but calmly made his way through the hospital corridors looking for the room. When he got there, he opened the door and was greeted by the sight of Kushina holding Naruto in her arms, gently rocking him back and forth. As he walked into the room, Kushina looked up at him and smiled. Hey Jiraiya, she said weakly. Clearly she wasn't at full health yet. Hey Kushina, how are you both doing? I'm fine while getting there. Naruto seems to be fine too. I'm just worried about what could happen to him, she said as she continued to slowly rock her child. She understood why Minato had to do what he did. That doesn't mean that she was happy about it, especially not if something happened to Naruto because of it. Minato might have survived a meeting with the Shinigami, but that ain't got nothing on an enraged Namikaze. Kushina, mind if I have a look at the seal? Minato would be better to check, but until he's healthy I can tell if anything's wrong with it. Kushina nodded. Please. Jiraiya picked Naruto up and placed him in the crib at the side of his mother's bed. He unwrapped the blankets and gathered a little chakra into his hands. He then put his hands on Naruto's stomach and pumped a little bit into his system to make the seal visible. After a few minutes of examining the seal he spoke. There doesn't appear to be anything wrong with the seal. I can't see a problem with the Kyuubi's soul being sealed away, and I don't think that its influence should bother him. Of course Minato will have to examine it properly as it's his seal, but at the moment I don't think there is anything to worry about. Kushina leant over and gave the old man a hug. Thank you, Jiraiya. Jiraiya hugged her back and got a perverted grin on his face. Any perverted thoughts and I'm gonna kick your ass, old man. That quickly put an end to said perverted thoughts. There were two females in particular that he was afraid of when it came to his perverse nature. Tsunade, his teammate, and Kushina, his apprentice's wife. Tsunade had almost killed him once after spying on her in the onsen, and if Kushina knew about what he was doing 9 months ago the guy wouldn't stand a chance. So little faith, he mumbled as Jiraiya walked to the door. Are you going to be alright? She nodded. Yeah, just see how that baka husband of mine is going. Jiraiya chuckled. Yeah, okay, I'll see you both later. He waved as he made his way out of the room. It took a week before Tsunade released the two from hospital on the grounds that they didn't exert themselves and no sexual activity for a month so Kushina could properly heal. Minato was pretty bummed, but after being glared at by both females quickly changed his attitude. Minato would have got quite a beating from his wife had they both not been so injured. She told him what she thought of his actions, how she understood but wasn't happy about it. He told her that it was the only way for him to stop it, and if he didn't Konoha would have been destroyed. After they vented, they walked home with Minato's arm around Kushina as she leaned into him while carrying their son. It was a beautiful sight, only enhanced by the cheers they received as they made their way through the streets on their way home. Minato had checked the seal and was happy to say that he also couldn't see anything wrong with it. One thing that did bother Kushina though, was that he wasn't sure what would happen when he could mold chakra. The seal's intentions were for the Kyuubi's chakra to combine with Naruto's as he got older, so that Naruto's chakra coils weren't overloaded at too young an age. Minato just couldn't be sure how much the Kyuubi's chakra affected him until he got older. He figured he could probably start training at about 6 or 7. He couldn't wait. When they were all told about Orochimaru's defection and that their suspicions on his experiments were accurate, well more than accurate, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Minato and Kushina were all ready to go kill the bastard, especially when they found out that he'd kidnapped a little girl. However, when logic returned to them they realized that Minato and Kushina weren't back to full health, and they didn't even know where the snake was. So it was decided to deal with him at a later time. Minato, Kushina, Jiraiya, Tsunade and Sarutobi all stood on the balcony of the Hokage's tower looking over at the village's people who he had called for. Despite protests from Kushina, Minato had decided to tell the people exactly what happened to the Kyuubi. Something he would live to regret. People of Konoha, he yelled out. 1 week ago, we were ravaged by the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The village sustained heavy losses, but more importantly everyone lost someone close to them. This is a test to the strength of Konohagakure, and we will prevail. I am here today to explain exactly how the Kyuubi was defeated. I have faith in all of you and I hope that it isn't misplaced. Murmurs went through the crowd wondering what the hell their Hokage was on about. It is impossible for a mortal to kill a Bijou. Even louder murmurs went through the crowd. Minato held up his hands for quiet. I knew that going into battle, the reason that our village is still standing is because of my son's birth. Cheers of applause erupted from the otherwise miserable audience. Thank you, but to defeat the demon I used a forbidden sealing technique, and with much regret sealed the demon's soul within my son. Gasps were heard from all over the crowd as they began to call for the child's death. Kill the demon, get rid of it while it's weak, finish it off Yondaime-sama. Kushina and Tsunade were in tears, Kushina more so, while Minato, Jiraiya and Sarutobi were absolutely furious. Silence! Minato roared. My son is not the demon. In fact, where he is the demon can't affect anyone, not even him. He is the true savior of this village. Without him we would all be dead. If he weren't born that night we would have all been crushed. This didn't seem to satisfy the crowd as they continued to call for the child's death. He killed my husband. I lost my husband and son to that beast. Kill the Kyuubi brat. Now the 5 standing on the balcony, along with only a few in the crowd, were absolutely disgusted with the way that the village was reacting. Sure, they had only recently been attacked by the beast, but isn't it easy enough to see that it's a plain innocent child? It seems my faith and trust is misplaced. From now on I deem any mention of the nature of the Kyuubi's defeat an S-class secret, and I mean any mention of it or attacks on my son will be punished by death. You're all dismissed. Minato turned back around to see Sarutobi looking quite disappointed, Jiraiya looking furious, Tsunade crying and Kushina she looked absolutely devastated. Minato moved over to his wife and embraced her. He was gently rubbing the back of her head as she choked out. He's an innocent child. I know, Kushina-chan, I know. Minato actually expected the people to cherish his son as their savior. Never had he been more disappointed. But that was his mistake to bear. Perhaps if he had just kept it quiet, made something up. But that wasn't who he was. He was honorable and truthful and had trust and faith in people evidently too much. Why weren't we told of this first? Yelled Koharu, the Hokage's advisor. My priority was to tell the village first, something that I deeply regret. Replied Minato. As much as Danzo wanted the boy for his Root ANBU group, there was no way he was going to bring it up with Minato. Danzo knew when was a good time to shut up. An arrogant fool he may have been, but even he knew he has no chance against Konoha's Yellow Flash. I want to know here and now who supports me and my family, especially my son. Now that the village knows the truth, I fear for the worst. While I will bear no grudge against those that do not, I will not be happy if I hear of one of you intending to harm my child. Murmurs went around the room as the Hokage sat back in his chair, still quite fatigued from his fight with the Kyuubi. Minato was certain that at least Fugaku, Yamada, Hayashi, Yumi, Tsunade and Sasuke would support him. He was unsure about the rest though. The noise died when Yamada stood up. I, Haruno Yamada, on behalf of the Haruno clan pledge allegiance and offer support and protection to Namikaze Naruto and the Namikaze clan, should it be required. Next Hayashi stood up. I, Hyuga Hayashi, on behalf of the Hyuga clan pledge allegiance and offer support and protection to Namikaze Naruto and the Namikaze clan should it be needed. I, Uchiha Fugaku, on behalf of the Uchiha clan pledge allegiance and offer support and protection to Namikaze Naruto and the Namikaze clan whenever it is needed. I, Senju Tsunade, on behalf of the Senju clan pledge allegiance and offer support and protection to Namikaze Naruto and the Namikaze clan should it be needed. I, Sarutobi Sasuke, seen it used before, on behalf of the Sarutobi clan pledge allegiance and offer support and protection to the Namikaze clan and Namikaze Naruto. I, Yuhi Yumi, on behalf of the Yuhi clan pledge allegiance and offer support and protection to Namikaze Naruto and the Namikaze clan should it be needed. I, Mitarashi Mika, on behalf of the Mitarashi clan pledge allegiance and offer support and protection to Namikaze Naruto and the Namikaze clan should it be needed. Next Inoichi, Shikaku and Chuza stood up. We, Yamanaka Inoichi Naro Shikaku Akimichi Chuza pledge allegiance and offer our protection and support to the Namikaze clan and their heir, Namikaze Naruto. I, Hataki Kakashi, on behalf of the Hataki clan pledge allegiance and offer support and protection to Namikaze Naruto and the Namikaze clan. I, Inuzuka Tsum, on behalf of the Inuzuka pack, offer our protection and support to the Namikaze clan and your son. I, Aburaim Shino, on behalf of the Aburaim clan pledge our allegiance, support and protection to the Namikaze clan and their heir, Namikaze Naruto. Minato was ecstatic with how much support his son had, but he had expected something similar. He was good friends with everyone on the council, which was bound to help. That and who really wanted to go against the legendary Yellow Flash? Thank you all of you. Your support to my son means a lot and I hope that it may sway the opinions of the village. That is all that we are needed here for today. I offer my condolences to those that have lost family members and friends during the attack. They each bid their farewells until it was only Minato, Tsunade, Sarutobi, Jiraiya and Kushina who had been hiding since the start of the proceedings. Who has Naruto? Minato asked. Shizen and Rin are taking care of him. Kushina replied as she took a seat at the table. Ah, good. Well, we can be happy with the support we received, don't you think? They all nodded and then Minato asked. Say Tsunade? You made a decision yet? Decision? What decision? Kushina questioned. I told her that she should be Naruto's godmother, and stay with him here in the village. I hope you don't have a problem with that? Of course not. Kushina replied. I can't think of anyone better. So what do you say, Tsunade? She tried in vain to hide her happiness from everyone else. I think I can live with that. Yes, the timeline is a little distorted, but everything pre-QB has happened/will happen, so never fear. Is it going too fast? It sort of seems rushed to me. Let me know what you all think. Naruto! Get back here right now! Screamed Kushina as she chased after her son. Said boy just chuckled and kept running. He turned his head to see that his mother was still behind him. He turned back around just in time to be picked up by Shizune-chan. Shizen just laughed as she handed the boy back to his mother. Naruto-kun, you need to get ready. Daddy has an important meeting today. He crossed his arms and turned away from Shizen and his mother. No fair, I want to play. Yes, I know that, Naruto-chan. When you get ready, Kakashi-kun and Rin-chan will take you to play. But you're going to play with the Raikages and the Kazekage's children, so be nice. His mother said, having more success at dressing her child. Okay, Mum. After finally getting dressed, Naruto continued to run around the house until it was time to go. Kushina, Naruto and Shizen traveled through the streets on the way to the Hokage Tower. On the way they stopped briefly to greet some people and for Kushina to deal with those that still haven't come around and acknowledge the fact that Naruto was in fact human, and not the Kyuubi. It had taken 5 years, but Minato, along with the major clans, the Sandaime, and the remaining Sannin had finally convinced most of the village of this fact. They were about 5 minutes from the tower when a familiar smell made Naruto stop in his tracks. The smell was divine, it appealed to his senses like no other before it. It seemed as though Kami herself had created it. Oh no, thought both Kushina and Shizen as they watched the boy, his expression meaning only one thing. Ramen! After much negotiation, as in Kushina literally prying the child from the stand and promising to take him later, the trio finally made it to the Hokage's tower. They walked up the stairs and onto the floor in which Minato worked, where they were greeted by the Hokage's assistant, some hussy in Kushina's opinion. Ohio, Kushina-sama, Naruto-sama, Shizen-san. Hokage-sama has been expecting you, please go right in. The assistant said, a fake smile plastered on her face. Why thank you? Kushina replied, almost sarcastically. They walked into the room to see Minato, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Sarutobi with the Reikage and the Kazekage and 4 other children. Greetings Kazekage-sama, Reikage-sama, I'm sorry that we were late. I had some issues getting Naruto ready. Toa-san, Ka-san didn't let me have ramen, he said pouting. Apart from Kushina, the rest of the room began laughing, dismissing the formal and uptight atmosphere that was once in the room. Oh well, I'm sure if you ask Kakashi or Rin they'll get you some. But for now, how about you go with Kakashi and Rin to the park and take Yugito-chan, Temari-chan, Kankuro-kun and Gaara-kun with you. Okay. Where is Kakashi and Ai-san and Rin-chan? They should be here soon, Naruto-kun. I told them to be here about now. Minato replied, dreading that Kakashi would once again be late. Just today, one day he hoped that his student decided to be on time. Ota-san. Naruto said in a hushed voice. What is it, son? I think they're hiding and kissing again. Once again the adults in the room started to chuckle. Again? Minato questioned. He certainly wasn't aware of anything going on between his former students, but he wouldn't be surprised. They had been quite close lately. Naruto went to open his mouth but was unable due to Kakashi clamping his hand over Naruto's mouth. He doesn't know what he's talking about, Hokage-sama, Kakashi said with a blush, only hidden by his mask. I'm sure Kakashi this isn't over yet, he said grinning. Well, forgive me, Hokage-sama, Reikage-sama, Kazekage-sama, but please excuse me, I shall take the children to the park until the end of your meeting. Thank you, Hataki-san, but we must have our own advisors accompany you. Erasure, please accompany Hataki-san, the Reikage said. Hi, Reikage-sama, the Erasure said, seemingly appearing from nowhere. Yes, Yashimaru, go with them please, the Kazekage said. Hi, Kazekage-sama, Yashimaru said as he also seemingly appeared from nowhere. The rest knew better though. Kakashi with Naruto, Erasure with Yugito and Yashimaru with Temari, Kankuro and Gaara all made their way outside the office to see Rin waiting for them all. Hey, how's it going? Rin said as they stopped in front of her. Hey Nei-chan. Hello Naru-chan, how are you today? Naruto walked over to her and beckoned for her to kneel down. She knelt down and Naruto whispered in her ear. Rin stood back up while trying to keep from laughing. Naruto noticed it and began to frown. The other jounin in the room were also trying not to laugh, having also heard what he said. So you don't want me to call you that because there are 2 pretty girls in the room? Rin asked with a smirk. Naruto, Yugito and Temari all blushed, then Naruto yelled. Nii-chan, now that the children have been taken care of, we can get down to business, Minato said. He was currently decked out in the customary Hokage robes in honor of his guests. It's not that he didn't like the things, he just preferred to wear his outfit and his cloak. While Jiraiya, Tsunade, Sarutobi and Kushina remained in the room, they opted to stay quiet and leave the Kages to do their job. Yes, it is my belief that you wish to propose an alliance between the 3 villages? The Reikage asked. Yes, after the losses in the last war, it's not something I wish to see again. I figure that if 3 of the 5 hidden villages are in an alliance it would deter the others from attempting to take us over. So in other words you want the others afraid to try anything. The Kazekage mused. Essentially, yes, Minato replied. I like your reasoning, but what else do each of us gain from such an agreement? The group of 7 made their way through the streets until that divine smell touched Naruto's nose once again. Rin stopped when she noticed Naruto was frothing at the mouth. Naru-chan, what's wrong? Instead of speaking or even replying at all, he hovered over to the Ichiraku ramen stand and went inside. Is Naruto-kun alright? Yugito asked, shocking her supervisor. Yugito never usually shows concern, she seems too comfortable around this kid. Yeah, the kid just has an unnatural addiction to ramen. Well, I'm hungry anyway, so we may as well get something to eat, Kakashi said as he started to make his way over to the stand. The others followed quietly, not even knowing what ramen was. They got inside and were shocked at the sight. Already the kid had downed 2 bowls and the owner seemed to be cooking more. Tucci, the stand's owner, just laughed at the shocked looks on the visitors' faces. I knew he was coming, you always have to be ready for this one. The others took a seat at the small stand, the adults opting to stand, while Temari ended up standing too as the small stand only had 4 stools. So being the gentleman that surprisingly enough Jiraiya had taught him to be, Naruto stood and said, Here Temari-chan, you can sit here. Temari blushed and said, Thank you Naruto-kun. They all made their orders and waited for their meal. Kakashi stood there smirking. Smooth Naruto, 5 years old, and you already have the girls swooning. Ah, how cute. Rin thought, also watching the scene with interest. Temari was actually quite shocked at the gesture. Back home in Sunagakure people stayed away from her because they are all afraid of Gaara. So she's a little foreign to these friendly gestures. Naruto, how old are you? Kankuro asked, speaking for the first time. I'm 5, what about you? Naruto replied. Younger than me, damn, wait, what? Thought both Temari and Yugito. Erasure and Yashimaru remained quiet during the exchange, examining the changes in the children's normal attitudes. The both of them were aware that none of them had any friends within their home village. Yugito and Gaara because of what they held, and Temari and Kankuro because they're Gaara's siblings. Erasure was happy for his niece while Yashimaru wasn't fazed. Once they find out what that monster really is, he'll have no one again. He thought while he inwardly smirked. Turns out Yashimaru blames Gaara for his sister's death, and while he seems to care somewhat for the child on the outside, if it weren't for that damn sand protecting Gaara, he'd be the one to end his life. I'll have another Naruto special, old man. Naruto called out from the ground, coming right up. Tsuchi called back as he went to make the order. He has a dish named after him? Everyone but Naruto, Kakashi and Rin thought. Was that Naruto-kun I heard too, San? A girl who looked to be about Yugito's age said as she came through the back of the stand. When she made herself visible, even the older males had to admit the girl was quite attractive. She flicked her hair as she came to the front counter, and leaned over to see if she could see Naruto. Yeah, hi, I am Chan. Oh hail, Naruto-kun. How are you today, and why are you sitting on the floor? Oh, this is Gaara, Kankuro, Temari-chan and Yugito-chan. There wasn't enough seats, so I'm on the floor. Didn't really hear the last bit. She was too busy glaring at Temari-chan, and Yugito-chan death stared them, which the gesture was gladly returned by both the girls just as intense. While Naruto stared on in confusion, the adults just inwardly laughed at the boy's predicament. An hour and this kid has Yugito showing more emotion than I've seen since she was a baby, thought Erasure staring on in wonder. The 5 kids seemed to get along, while Gaara and Kankuro hadn't said much. Both of them were unfamiliar with what was going on. It was still a nice change for them. The group ate their meal in relative silence. Well, Naruto-kun, I think it's time we left and let some other customers eat here, any? Rin said as she pulled out the money for the meal. Do we have to? Naruto whined. He could have kept eating the stuff all day and the company was nice. Yes, we have to. Now finish it up. Oh, you should have guessed. Before Rin could hand the money over, Naruto went into his pocket and pulled out his gamachan, or as normal people would call it, a sad excuse for a purse/wallet. He pulled out some money and handed it over to Ayam. There you go, Ayam-chan. Well, let's go. Naruto, where did you get that money from? Asked Kakashi. He knew for a fact that his parents didn't let him have much money on him. The kid's clumsy and is likely to lose it or blow it on ramen. Oh, Ota-san gave it to me and said give them a good time or something. Not sure what he meant though. The adults snickered and ushered the children out of the stand after thanking Tsuchi for the meal. The meeting had been going on for a couple of hours now, and they had been finalizing the stipulations for the alliance treaty. So far there didn't seem to be any significant downsides for anyone, and the strength of the combined forces would be quite impressive. They seemed to have come to a conclusion of that part when something surprised Minato. Your son, Naruto, is the Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi no Kitsune, isn't he? Although unknown to the others, the Reikage has had his fair run-in with the Bijou and knew that it couldn't be defeated by humans. That, and he had noticed a couple of fox-like traits about the boy. What makes you think that? Minato asked, not trying to give anything away. The last thing he wanted was foreigners learning of Naruto's situation and trying to manipulate the potential power for their own. His son was no tool and he didn't deserve to be treated like one. You could say I've had a run-in with a Bijou before and I know they can't be defeated. You're a seal master, so it makes sense. The whisker marks on his cheek do nothing to hide the fact either. The others looked on in surprise that he had deduced so much from so little information. Jiraiya, Tsunade, Kushina and Sarutobi all sat wondering what Minato would do. The Reikage was sharp, almost as sharp as Kushina. Minato mused. He still didn't want to give any information away. One thing caught him though. You said that you've had a run-in with a Bijou before. Which one and what happened? He may be an ally, but Minato still didn't trust him completely, especially considering he was still the leader of a foreign country. I understand your reluctance to answer. Therefore I shall tell you that something similar happened in Kumogakure. The Sandaime Reikage died sealing the Nibi no Nikomata into my daughter Yugito. She hasn't had the best of lives. In fact, the Council of Kumo is turning her into a weapon, something I'm powerless to stop. The news shocked the Kazekage. He thought he'd be ahead having a weapon like Gaara under his control, but both of his new allies have one too, and if the amount of tails the beast has is any indication, they both have a stronger weapon under their control. I see, this wasn't something I was expecting to come out today, but after your show of faith I will admit that my son Naruto is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Minato replied, concern evident in his voice. He was afraid of the same thing at one stage, of the council turning Naruto into a weapon or sentencing him to death. He was just lucky he had the council on his side. And if you don't mind me saying, Kazekage-sama, something seemed off about Gaara. Is he like Naruto and Yugito? Yes, after Gaara was born the council ordered that Shikaku, the Ichibi no Tanuki, was to be sealed inside of him. It came at the cost of my wife's death. I too was powerless to stop them. The Kazekage lied. In fact, the council didn't even know about what he had done until after he did it. I happen to have had the council's support on the matter, and Naruto was able to continue living as normal. Only now are the people starting to accept the fact that he is human, and not the beast sealed inside of him. You were lucky. The Reikage started. Yugito is hated and feared in Cloud. She has no friends and rarely shows emotions. As is the same with Gaara, no one will go near him, or my other children. Well, I'm sure they'll find a friend in Naruto. I think he would do the both of them good. Minato offered. I hope you're right. The Raikage replied. All of the children were currently slumped over in exhaustion, having just been running around playing tag for the better part of an hour. Gaara had finally started to open up to the group and actually found himself having fun. Something that he thought was reserved for other people. One thing that he was concerned about though was why did Naruto and Yugito want to play with him? No one else does. So he decided to voice his concern. Naruto, why do you play with me? The Jounin listened. I'm curious as to where this was going. Yugito thought the same thing but decided not to mention it just in case he stopped playing with her. She didn't want to do anything to spoil the fun that she had today, something that she hadn't experienced before. Because you're my friend, and you're cool to play with, Naruto said. While seeming just like an offhand comment to Naruto, those words meant a lot to Yugito and Gaara. Friend? Do you like me? You want to play with me? Gaara asked, really not believing what he was hearing. It was certainly a different feeling for him. Of course, why wouldn't I want to play with you? Naruto asked, genuinely confused as to what Gaara was on about. No one else does. I thought you would be the same. Gaara replied, opting to look down at the ground. He tried not to let it show, but not having any friends to play with and even his brother and sister normally fearing him. It hurt a lot. Why doesn't anyone else want to play with you? You're really cool and nice. Yashimara didn't like where this conversation was going and feared for the worst. He didn't want information on Gaara getting out as per the wish of the Kazekage. But the truth was he was scared of Gaara as much as everyone else was. I do not know. Gaara lied. He didn't want to lose his new friends, so he hid his status as a Jinchuriki. Naruto seemed like he was going to be Gaara's first friend along with Yugito, so he didn't want to spoil it. Oh well, you don't have to worry. I'll play with you whenever you come here, and if I visit maybe you can show me around your home? I'd like that very much, Naruto. Sounds great. Naruto exclaimed. Let's keep playing. Kankuru's up, said Naruto as he ran off with the others. Why am I up? Asked Kankuru. Because you look funny, screamed Temari as she ran away from her brother before he could catch her. That's it. The children played for hours getting to know each other and having fun while their fathers discussed business. The five of them seemed to get along really well, and while it was unknown to Naruto, Yugito, Gaara, Temari and Kankura had made their first friends today and weren't too keen on leaving. When it came time that they had to leave, it was done reluctantly, and only after the adults let them get ice cream on their way back. They had all promised to ask their fathers to let them see each other more often, and maybe they could stay over each other's places once in a while. Sure, it was a little while to travel, but they seemed to think it was worth it. Yugito had such a great day she forgot about how bad her life was in Kumogakure, how she was already being trained like a weapon, just because she had a demon within her. By saving the village, it seemed to her that the Sandaime Raikage sealed her fate. A life filled with nothing but being trained as a tool without the chance at life that should have been allowed like everyone else gets. Then it hit her. This was temporary. Tomorrow she would be returning back to the glares of the villagers, being locked in that room for hours on end before being allowed out to train. After having such a great day today, it hit her hard. This was a mere illusion. This wasn't her life, and it became too much for her. This is the life she wants but can never have. She let out years of emotions that have been sealed up by her trainers. She broke down crying in the middle of the street. Kakashi, Rin, Yashimara and the other children were in complete confusion as to why Yugito was acting the way she was. Erasure, however, knew exactly what was making her upset. He had watched the different emotions cross her face and was waiting for it. He felt so sorry for his niece but knew there was nothing he could do about it. Naruto stopped when he heard sobs and was really confused as to why she was crying. Wasn't she happy and playing just a few minutes ago? He started to bite his lip. One of his main weaknesses was seeing a girl cry. He hated it. Now what was it that his father did to his mother when she was crying? Give her flowers? No, that was when he did something wrong. He walked over to her and wrapped his arms around her in an embrace. Is that all he does? He asked himself. What are you doing? Yugito sniffled. I don't know, but I don't like seeing you cry. Yugito-chan and Tusan does this to Ka-san when she cries. Thank you, Naruto-kun, Yugito said as she awkwardly tried to return the hug. It wasn't often she received caring gestures, but this topped the list. Meanwhile, Temari was glaring daggers at the girl while wondering why she even cared. Gaara and Kankuru were also somewhat concerned for why Yugito was crying but was confused by what Naruto was doing. What's hugging someone going to do? Kakashi cleared his throat. I don't mean to interrupt, but it's late and we need to get back. Okay, I'm sorry, Yugito said as she reluctantly let go of Naruto. Kakashi dismissed her apologies and led them back to the Hokage's tower. The rest of the trip was pretty uneventful and quiet. A pleasant change after the events of the day, or so according to the jounins of the group. The children were just too tired after all their running around and playing. As much as they didn't want it to end, they really wanted to go to bed and rest. As they made it up the steps to Minato's office, they looked outside one of the passing windows and noticed that the sun was relatively close to setting. If they had to guess, it appeared to be about 4 o'clock. When they got to the top level where Minato resided, they saw that people were packing up and heading home for the day. But when they reached the door to the Hokage's office, they noticed it was still closed, and they all sighed. They thought for sure they'd be finished by now. How much longer were they going to have to wait? Naruto plopped down on the ground a couple of meters from the door to rest his legs. Although they were more reluctant to just sit on the floor in the middle of the Hokage tower, the other children soon followed suit. So are you all going to be super cool ninjas like your dads are? Naruto asked. Hi. They all said. Aren't they great for conversation? Me too. Naruto said. I'm going to be the greatest Hokage ever. He finished, however in his fatigued state it really didn't have as much of an effect as usual. Your dad is pretty strong though, will you be better than him? Kankura asked, also sounding tired. I'm sure. With Tsusan, Ka-san, Tsunade Bachan and Eroji-san training me, I'll be the best in no time. Yugito had to smile at his determination and his free spirit, something she found herself jealous of. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Sarutobi and Kushina had left the meeting a short time ago, and ever since they left the Kages had decided to spy on their children to see how they got on. To say they were surprised by how friendly they seemed was an understatement. On first glance you would think they'd been friends for years. They watched them for almost an hour before Naruto's outburst about becoming Hokage, which they all laughed at, and then for about 10 minutes more before opening the door and welcoming them in. So, did you have fun today, children? Minato asked as they all assembled in front of the Kages. Yashimaru, Rin, Kakashi and Erasure bowing while the others just stood there. Yes, exclaimed Naruto. We ate ramen, but there wasn't enough seats, so I sat on the floor and I saw Ayam-chan, and then Rinne-chan made us leave. I wasn't even finished. And then we went to the park and we played, and then Kakashi and Ai-san made us leave. But we all got ice cream on the way back. I had chocolate ice cream and it was yum. Naruto finally stopped for air and to let the others digest what he said. Well, you certainly sound like you had fun. Are you all tired? The Kazekage asked. He received 4 nods and a sort of. Tsusan, can we please get ramen before we go home? The adults in the room chuckled while the children thought, how much of that stuff can he eat? We'll see, son, we'll see. Well, I think that's everything that we needed to do here. Would you like to do this again sometime, kids? Minato asked, already knowing the answer to his question, and sure enough, in response he received 3 very eager nods. Well, I'm sure we can work something out. Before anyone could say anything else there was an urgent knock at the door. Come in, called Minato. The man walked in and kneeled. Forgive me, Hokage-sama, Reikage-sama, Kazekage-sama, but a young girl who appears to be no older than 12 years old with purple hair has appeared at the gates. She appears to be healthy but extremely tired. She said she won't speak to anyone but the Hokage. She said she has some important information. Minato along with the rest of the room perked up. Who exactly is it? Minato questioned. Literashi Anko, sir. Literashi Anko, sir. The little girl that was kidnapped. Minato realized. Thank you, bring her here right away. Hi, Hokage-sama. The man said before leaving the room. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you all to leave. This matter is too important to leave alone. Reikage-dano, Kazekage-dano, please discuss what we have agreed on with the council of your villages and please inform me of your decision. I look forward to a positive reaction. Minato stated. He received a few nods in agreement before the Kages, their children and their bodyguards left. The children bid their farewell and told each other they would see each other soon. Kakashi, I want you to go and get Tsunade and Sarutobi. Jiraiya is out of the village right now, so I'll inform him later. Rin, I want you to take Naruto home and ask Kushina to come here, please. Could you also either have Shizen take care of him, or could you do it? Hi, Minato-sensei. They both said. Naruto, I need you to go home with Rin and do what she says. I'll speak to you later, okay? Okay, Tsusan. Naruto replied. He went and gave his father a hug and left the room with Rin. Kakashi shined away to retrieve who he was told to. Apparently something is going on between Kakashi and Rin. Seems as though Naruto caught them in the act. Kushina said, giggling like a schoolgirl. Not long after she had returned from the meeting, Yuhiyumi, one of her best friends, came over with her daughter just to catch up. They had been catching up on the town gossip for a couple of hours. Meanwhile, 12-year-old Kurinai just sat there next to her mother, bored out of her brains. She wasn't even sure why she was there, but her mother had dragged her along and now she just had to put up with it. But she was so goddamn bored. She looked around the room while the women were gossiping like teenagers, quite pathetic in Kurinai's opinion. On the wall immediately to her left was a large and seemingly recent family portrait with a tall man, a little taller than 6 foot, with long, unruly blonde hair and a ponytail going down to his back and beautiful blue eyes. He wore a standard jounin outfit with a white cloak over it that was opened at the front and went down to his feet. She could see a bit of writing on the back but couldn't see enough to make out the writing. She would have to read it the next time he saw her Hokage, she figured. On his forehead was the traditional Konoha Hittite. On his left was a smaller woman, perhaps 4 or 5 inches smaller than her husband. She had beautiful red flowing hair that went to her mid-back. Kurinai thought that even in the photo she has some of the deepest and beautiful green eyes that she'd ever seen. She was also decked out in her standard clothing consisting of a white sleeveless undershirt, and over it a long black dress, with a whirlpool Hittite on her left arm. Kurinai remembered something about Kushina temporarily retiring because she had a son. That would explain the lack of ninja clothing. In between the two was a little boy decked out in a plain orange shirt and black pants. Like his father, he had beautiful blue eyes, but he had short, spiky blonde hair rather than the ponytail that his father has. They look really happy. Kurenai thought, staring at the picture a moment longer before moving on. The next picture she saw was a slightly smaller one with Minato, Kushina and Naruto in more casual clothes, as well as another family she didn't know. The man in the photo had short, well-groomed brown hair, green eyes and glasses. He had a brown sweater on and long black pants. Next to him was a woman with pink hair that went down to her shoulders. She had blue eyes and wore a long red dress. There was also a little girl in the photo who looked to be about Naruto's age. She had pink hair like her mother, but her eyes were green like her father's. She wore white shorts and a baby pink-colored shirt. The 6 of them looked to be enjoying themselves. She was cut from her gazing when the blonde boy from the photos and Haruno Rin walked into the living room. "Who is Anko, Rin-chan?" Naruto asked as they walked away from the Hokage's tower towards the Namake's estate. "She's a girl a bit older than you. That's all I can tell you, you'll have to ask your father for anything else," Rin replied. She wasn't sure if she was allowed to say anything, so she just decided to keep her mouth shut. "Please Rin-chan, I won't tell anybody." "Promise." "No, you'll have to ask your father later, Naruto-kun. Now come on, we need to get you home." "Okay, I'll just annoy Tsunade later." Naruto resigned himself to the fact that he wouldn't get the information out of Rin. She was as stubborn as his mother, a fact he knew too well. As they made their way through the gates, Rin was still amazed by the place. The main house was at the back of the compound, and there was about 10 other houses scattered around. The smaller houses belonged to the other clan members that used to live there, while the main house was reserved for the clan head. While the main house was occupied by Minato, Kushina and Naruto, after the Kyuubi attack and the Namake's clan being all wiped out aside from the 3 of them, Minato had offered a house each to Kakashi, Rin, Tsunade and Shizen, and one to Jiraiya whenever he was in the village. They all took up the offer, but Tsunade and Shizen shared the one house. At the time she was too young to be out on her own. The normal houses were each 2 stories and had about 4 to 5 rooms per house. The main house, however, was about 3 stories and had about 12 rooms. The main bedroom was the size of 2 of the normal size rooms and had a walk-in wardrobe and ensuite. The ensuite had 2 sides, one for her and one for him. Throughout the house there were polished floorboards and marble staircases, beautiful glass chandeliers and nice wooden furnishings. Some may say it's a little excessive. It's clear that the clan founder liked to live big. There was also a dojo on the middle floor, and next to that was the Namake's personal library filled with notes, jutsu scrolls, and scrolls on different fighting types and styles. The 2 of them passed the protective seals and barriers in place to only let family and very close friends through, unaccompanied of course, and made their way through the door. They headed straight to the living room where they heard Kushina's voice. As soon as Naruto walked into the room, he stopped. In front of him was one of the most beautiful girls he'd ever seen. She had ruby red eyes and long curvy brown hair that came down to her mid-back. She had on a tight light green sleeveless shirt, which seemed to be showing her undeveloped chest off. She had black shinobi pants on and standard black shinobi sandals. Kurenai noticed Naruto staring at her, and had to blush. He looked quite similar to what he did in the picture, except today he wore a dark blue shirt, and it looked as though someone had tried to brush his hair. What a cutie, she thought. Sorry to interrupt. But Kushina, Mitarashi Anko has returned and Minato-sensei requires your presence. That poor girl. How is she? Ayumi asked. I'm not sure. All I know is that she has returned and she should be at the Hokage's office soon. He asked me to look after Naruto while you were gone. I can do that if you'd like. Ayumi offered. Thank you, Ayumi, that'd be great. Rin, I want you to come with me. You and Kakashi can make sure no one else finds out about this, and no one else can come in until we find out what's happened. The last thing we need is someone barging in and accuse her of being a traitor. I still can't believe her own clan were the ones to name her one. Hi, well, we better go. You be a good boy, Naruto-kun. What would Yugito-chan, Temari-chan or Sakura-chan say? Rin said with a wink. Kurenai didn't get it, but the others that had seen Naruto almost drooling over her did, and inwardly laughed. I'm going, Naruto-chan, so be a good boy for Ayumi and Kurenai-chan. Any? Hi, Ka-san. With that, Rin and Kushina left for the Hokage's office, leaving Ayumi with Kurenai and Naruto. Ayumi he had met before. Her and his mother would always catch up, but it was usually during the day when the academy was on, which is where Kurenai had been for the past 4 years. She would be going for her genin exam in a month, and then she could become a great kunoichi like her mother. So Naruto, what did you do today? Ayumi asked. Something that she would come to regret, and regret she did. As soon as she'd finished, the boy recited almost everything that he'd done during the day, displaying the emotions as he had them during the day and even acting out some of the scenes. It was quite amusing for the other 2, but tried not to laugh at the little boy, something that was becoming increasingly difficult for the 2 of them. And Tsunade said to come home? He finished. As soon as he did, he collapsed. Both Ayumi and Kurenai panicked and ran towards him to see what was wrong. They both knew basic first aid and found nothing wrong with him. He's just sleeping, Kurenai said. Ya poor kid, must be tired. Ayumi said. She then crouched down and picked him up. Kurenai, follow me and pull down his covers, will you? She asked while heading for the stairs. Hi, Ka-san. Kurenai followed her mother up the first set of stairs and traveled to the very end of the hallway. Ayumi motioned for her daughter to open the door, which she did, before walking into the room and pulling the covers back. While it was in the dark, she could tell the room was full of color and a few toys on the shelves and floor. It was a fairly large room but was for the most part empty. Probably had another room for his other belongings, she figured. After she did that, she headed back down the stairs into the living room to where they were sitting before. Kurenai took the seat in which Kushina was sitting, which was opposite the chair her mother sat in. She had just got comfortable when her mother sat back down. They sat there in silence for a bit before Ayumi spoke up. "So what do you think of Naruto?" she asked. "I don't know, he seems nice and innocent, nothing what he was made out to be a few years ago," she replied. She was there at the meeting of the village after the Kyuubi attacked, and while not having too many memories of her younger years, that night was one to stay. At first she thought that the boy was the monster, but that could have been her being young and scared. It had taken her mother to bring her around and accept that he's just like everyone else. Up until now she hadn't interacted with the boy, not that there had been any real interaction tonight either. A little eccentric and full of energy, cute little kid, I guess. He isn't that much younger than you, no, only 7 years or so, she said slyly. Kurenai was sort of worried about her mother's tone but didn't really know why. Nor did she know why her mother was even talking about this. She answered anyway. "I guess not, there isn't that much between us." "What's with her?" she questioned herself. "Ah, that's good to hear. Not too much of a difference to say get involved at a later stage any, Kurenai-chan?" she asked innocently, but they both knew there wasn't anything innocent about it. "Ka-san. I'm not planning now to go out with a 5-year-old. Well, he won't be 5 later on, will he?" she replied. "No, but what are you getting at?" This was really confusing her. Is she trying to get her together with a 5-year-old? "Well, I thought it'd be a good idea for you to get to know your husband before you marry him," still using that innocent tone of voice. "What?" she screamed mentally. "What the hell is she on about husband? Sorry, Kurenai-chan, the two of you have been betrothed since before birth. It was a part of the alliance between the clans about 15 years ago. Betrothed?" Thud. Her mother felt sorry for her, but the look on her face and then fainting. It set her into fits of laughter. Even the usually cold Yuhis broke their composure sometimes. Fear. Relief were the only two things going through Mitarashi Anko's mind at the moment. The 12-year-old sat in front of the Sandame and the Yandame Hokages, the Hokage's wife and the remaining loyal Sannin. Sure, it was a lot safer than where she had been, but she wasn't stupid. She just returned from the enemy, that makes her the enemy too. In their eyes anyway. "How are you, Anko?" Minato asked sincerely. She was surprised. Not only did he not immediately interrogate her, but he asked how she was, and he seemed genuine. "Something's not right. I don't know," she replied honestly. "Okay, are you hungry?" he asked, still sounding caring and sincere. She slowly nodded her head. She was starving. She hadn't eaten in a few days, not since she ran away. She didn't want to stop for too long in case someone found her. "Is there anything in particular you would like?" "I don't mind," she said. Since she had gotten in there she hadn't kept eye contact for very long. After being manipulated and abused from such a young age she wasn't a very trusting person. Minato nodded at her answer, not that she could see it, and ushered Kakashi inside the door. "Kakashi, go get something for us all to eat. I know I haven't eaten and Anko-chan here would like something to eat." "No pit stops, got me?" Kakashi nodded nervously. Hi, Minato-sensei." He left the office to go get some food. Meanwhile Anko wasn't sure what to think. He's being so nice, someone being nice to her sadly wasn't something she was used to. Being kidnapped by a Hibi team at a young age and treated like genuine shit for 5 years straight leads you to that stage. Not something that anyone should have to go through, but if Orochimaru had you, there wasn't much say in the matter. "So Anko-chan, what exactly happened?" "You don't have to rush, take your time. I just want to know what happened to you after you were taken." "You know I was taken?" she asked desperately. "Of course, why wouldn't we?" The people in the room know that she wasn't. 90 of the rest of the people thought her a traitor. For now they decided to keep that to themselves. They wanted some information from her. "Or he told me you'd all think I was a traitor." "People don't think that, do they?" she asked. "Anko-chan, there are some that don't, but I'm sorry, a lot of people are closed-minded and think that you are." I see. It wasn't that hard for her to hear as she thought. Being told to expect it just as a deterrent to run away, seems it prepared her for it. "I guess you want to know what I know. Depending on that is what happens to me, right?" Minato was actually appalled. This was the lengths Orochimaru went to keep her there. Destroying her mentally, telling her that no one would accept her. Minato quickly looked over to Kushina and as if she knew what he was silently asking, she nodded. "No, I'll need you to volunteer to a mind walk where Yamanaka and Noichi will go through your mind to convince the council that you are telling the truth, and if that all checks out, I'll make sure you have a place in this village. I'll take you in if I need to, got that?" She looked up at him in a mix of emotions. Disbelief, nervousness, and even joy. Others may have thought her a traitor, but her own Hokage would look after her. It was too good to be true. As if reading her mind, Minato said, "I promise you that if you need somewhere to go, you can stay with me and my family." "I promise, and I never go back on my word," he said, grinning. Seems as though that comes as a natural Namake's tradition. She could sense no ill intent and no deception in his voice. For the first time in 5 years she smiled. A genuine smile, and it felt great. This was home, and she was safe. She started to cry. Kushina walked over to the girl and slowly started rubbing her back. At first contact, Anko flinched and looked up, but when she saw Kushina she relaxed and continued sobbing. Kushina rubbed her back and tried to tell her it was going to be okay. It took a while but eventually stopped crying and looked back up. She was about to tell them what happened to her when there was a knock at the office door. Minato told them to come in, and in walked Kakashi with a couple of kage bunshins each carrying a bag of food. They set the food down, and the clones were dismissed. After taking a box each for him and Rin, he left the room and closed the door. In front of them all was an assortment of ramen, sushi, onigiri and dango. How about we eat before we talk, hey? Minato stated rather than asked. Hi. Anko replied before digging into the food. She tried to stay considerate, she really did, but after not eating for a few days it's hard to control yourself in front of so much nice-looking food. After everything was eaten, Kushina quickly did her motherly thing and cleaned up all the mess. Tsunade and Sarutobi sat quietly during the exchange waiting to hear any information on Orochimaru. They, like Minato, knew that rushing her in that state could be dangerous for her, and understood why he wasn't persisting for information. Also, they, knowing Minato as well as they do, weren't in the least bit surprised at his offer for her to stay with him, and knew that he would do exactly as he said. Sadly, by the opinions of the villagers, she may very well have to take him up on the offer. Are you alright to talk about it now? Minato asked. Hi. She replied, feeling better than she was an hour ago when she arrived. Whenever you're ready, and remember to take your time. Anko nodded appreciatively. The night of the Kyuubi attack I was running towards my house because Kasan told me to. I was running when he stopped me and told him to go with him. He was a Sannin, so I trusted him. He started to walk outside the village, and when I asked where we were going he knocked me out. When I woke up I was in a dark room and I didn't know where I was. Later on I found out it was in Rice Country. I don't know how long I was alone down there, but he was the first person to come into the room. He bid me, he gave me a curse seal of heaven. She paused and showed them the seal. Minato made a sketch so that he and Jiraiya could look at it later and see what they could do, but on first glance they weren't too optimistic. There was more to that seal than meets the eye, that much they knew. After they'd finished she continued talking. I remember a lot of pain, and when I woke up I felt a lot of power, but it felt evil. My body was covered in swirly sort of marks. It didn't feel right, and I tried to avoid using it as much as I could. After that day I was trained by either him or a couple of other men. I was never told their names. While I was there we moved a lot, to other bases I think. He seemed to have experiments set up at each one, some on tables, some in tubes. There were bodies and parts everywhere. She shuddered, similar to the one just near here. Thought Minato, Kushina, Sarutobi and Tsunade. He used the curse seal on others. Barely any survived, but those that did used it quite often, and they seemed to change the more they used it. They were powerful, but I still didn't want to use it. We kept moving and he would train me a little until a few days ago where he left I had to run. I went into the room where all the maps and information was and sealed as many scrolls as I could. She pulled out a scroll and handed it to Minato. I'm not sure what's in there, I just grabbed what I could. Minato smiled at her. Anko-chan, you made a big gamble doing this, and these scrolls may just help protect our village. Thank you, although you will still have to go through the mind walk and people may not trust you. Know that by giving me these you have gained my complete trust, and if there is anything I can do for you, let me know, okay? Minato said, hoping that there was something he could use in the scroll. Anko nodded. Thank you very much, Hokage-sama. She replied. But what happens now? Will I go back to my house? Anko, I'm so sorry, your parents, they were killed on a mission about 2 years ago. Minato gravely responded. Tears trickled down her face again. I see. Will I go back to my clan? She'd prepared for her parents' death or not accepting her back. She'd had nightmares and tears before. She needn't cry anymore. Your clan believes that you left on your own free choice, and I'm sorry, but they said on the chance that you return you won't be allowed to return. That was something else she expected. Housing a traitor within your compound wouldn't look good for the clan, so it came as no surprise they wanted nothing to do with her. Anko Kushina spoke up for the first time. We mean it when we say you can come with us. We couldn't let you go out on your own, and after what you've handed over it's the least we could do. They were being serious. She looked up at Minato hopefully. He smiled and nodded in agreement. Anko smiled back and thanked them. Thank you, Hokage-sama, Kushina-sama. I promise I won't cause any trouble. They're somewhat used to trouble. That's something you don't have to worry about. Tsunade said. Aside from Anko they all chuckled, and when Anko looked at them questioningly Tsunade said, you'll find out later. Anko nodded her head and sat back in her chair, finally comfortable with her surroundings. She had the Hokage protecting her now, and not even Orochimaru could hurt her. Things were going to be good in Konoha. She was about to ask if she would be going there tonight when there was an urgent banging on the door. Kushina quickly hid Anko and nodded to Minato. Come in, he called. In rushed Hyuga Hizashi, brother to Hyuga Hayashi, the Hyuga clan head. He bowed low before saying, Hokage-sama, about 20 minutes ago there was an attempted kidnapping on Hinata-sama. What? Who did it? Did you catch them? Minato asked. Hi, Hayashi-sama caught him, Hokage-sama. It was a jounin from Kumogakure. In rushed Hyuga Hisashi, brother to Hyuga Hayashi, the Hyuga clan head. He bowed low before saying, Hokage-sama, about 20 minutes ago there was an attempted kidnapping on Hinata-sama. What? Who did it? Did you catch them? Minato asked. Hi, Hayashi-sama caught him, Hokage-sama. It was a jounin from Kumogakure. Things just aren't going to end today, are they? He mumbled. Okay, I'll head over there right now, Tsunade and Sarutobi. I want you to go and get the Reikage if he's still there. I'm not sure if he was the one to order the attack, call it a gut feeling. Kushina, you can go home. It's been a long day and I'm sure that Shizen or whoever is looking after Naruto would like to go home, and also take our guest home. Hisashi, where have you got him? Minato said. We have him in the Hyuga Council room, Hokage-sama. Hisashi replied. Right, let's go. Minato and Hisashi immediately left, followed by Tsunade and Sarutobi. Kushina went and got Anko from the corner and walked out of the office. Anko was amazed by the houses around Konoha as they made their way towards the Namikaze compound. It had been 5 years since she had been in Konoha and since then, had been staying in various underground bases of Orochimaru's. When they got through the gates to the Namikaze compound she was amazed even more, but not as much as she was when they reached the main house. It's massive, she thought. Kushina smiled at her expression. I guess you don't realize how big and nice it is when you've lived in it for this long. They walked inside and after standing there at the entrance admiring the view, Anko followed Kushina throughout the house. I'll give you a proper tour tomorrow, Anko-chan. For now, you're probably quite tired. Anko nodded. Well, we'll get you into a room and you can fix it like you want in the next couple of days. She nodded sleepily. Kushina giggled. Okay, Anko-chan, here's your room. Kushina opened the door and walked in with Anko following. It was one of the larger rooms, about the same size as Naruto's. It was quite plain, though, only being a guest room. It had a larger 4-poster bed against the back wall, and the walls were a light maroon color. You can sleep here. I'll get you a towel and I have a robe you can borrow for tonight so you can have a shower. Tomorrow we can get you some more clothes. Arigatou gozaimasu, Kushina-sama. Anko replied. She was overwhelmed by the fact the Namikaze had taken her in. It was nothing compared to how grateful she was for the amount of hospitality she had/will receive. Just Kushina is fine, Anko-chan. Anko nodded. She was thinking that she owed a lot to these people and wasn't sure how she could make it up to them when Kushina said, okay, follow me and I'll show you where the bathroom is. What is the meaning of this, Hokage Dano? The Reikage asked as he, Erasure and Sarutobi made their way into the Hyuga Council chambers where Minato and the Hyuga Council were sitting. Reikage Dano. Earlier this evening one of your jounin was caught attempting to kidnap the Hyuga clan heir, Hyuga Hinata. That's preposterous, no such orders were given. The Reikage replied coolly. That is something that I can believe. After today's meeting I didn't think that you would order such a thing. However, we need to know exactly what has happened, Minato replied, just as coolly. He truthfully did believe the Reikage. Somehow he just knew who to trust and who not to. Perhaps it was the turmoil of the children that they had in common, but Minato felt he could trust the guy. Not too much as he was still a foreign leader, but he could believe his word. Thank you, Hokage Dano, your trust is not misplaced. Where is the person who has been accused? He is in here, he said, pointing to a door to his left. I'll understand if you would like to take out the interrogation yourself, but Hyuga Hayashi and myself will need to be present for the proceedings. I understand perfectly, Hokage Dano. Shall we find out exactly what has happened? Yes, I shall lead the way. Minato and Hayashi got up and led the Reikage and Erasure into the room where the Kumo jounin was located. The man was tied to a chair with wire and Hayashi had sealed all the tenketsu points in his arms and legs so he couldn't move. When they all walked in, the man spat in the Reikage's direction. Erasure stepped forward, but the Reikage held up his hand. No need, Erasure. He'll be put to death soon enough. Erasure nodded and stepped back. Hayashi, Minato said. I believe you should be able to tell if this man is deceiving us? Hi, Hokage-sama. Hayashi replied. He activated his family's bloodline, the Byakugan, and observed the man's chakra and nervous systems. Hayashi, being as good as he was with the Byakugan, could also observe the nervous system as well as the chakra paths. He could also detect the slightest change in one's facial expression or detect any movements that could indicate someone trying to lie. Hamara? The Reikage questioned. I won't tell you anything. The now called Hamara replied. He promised his master not to talk, and that was something he was one order he was going to carry out. Chikanawa Hamara. A rookie NBU, what are you doing here? The Reikage asked. He knew for a fact that he didn't have any NBU escort, so the appearance of one seemed quite odd. I won't tell you anything, you're a weak Kage. Yahara-sama would make a much better Reikage. The man replied. Yahara? As in Yamanaki Yari? Minato asked. He had met with Yari in the last war. The man was strong and worthy of respect. He was one of the last in the platoon sent against Konoha. Minato and the Legion of Konoha ninja he had accompanied him had let him live in order to deliver a message to the Sandame Reikage. Yes, he is now the head of Kumoze NBU. So this was his doing? Did he order this upon you? The Reikage asked. He had never completely trusted Yari, but never before had he any evidence to do anything about him. This would signal the end for him if this was his doing. Yahari-sama will get the Byakugan, and he will destroy Konoha. Well, it seems as though the guy was good at following orders. Hyuga-san, does this man lie? The Reikage asked seriously. Betrayal right at the top would not look good for the Reikage, and he wanted to make sure there was no deception by this man before he acted upon this new evidence. This man has spoken nothing but the truth, what he truly believes anyway. I request that I be the one to end this man's life, Reikage-sama? Hayashi asked hopefully. This bastard had tried to kidnap his daughter, and he wanted to make him pay for it. I apologize for what this man has done to you and your family, and I permit your request, however I must have the body destroyed afterwards. The Reikage replied. He knew he wasn't in a good position at the moment. While in Konoha, one of his own men had attempted to kidnap one of the most prestigious clans of Konoha's heir. He was more than aware that reparations would have to be made to satisfy the Hokage and the Konoha Council. Hokage-dano, I must apologize for what has taken place here this evening, and I must insist that I knew nothing of this. However, I understand that to please both yourself and Konoha's council, reparations will need to be made. Minato knew that reparations would indeed have to be made, but he didn't think that the Reikage would be the one to put the issue forward. That is true, Reikage-dano. While I myself am pleased knowing that you didn't have anything to do with the attempted kidnapping, it would be improper to let this issue go without something in return. It is the whole of Kumo we will be allying with after all, not just yourself. Of course, perhaps we should continue this discussion in your office, Hokage-dano? Yes, Hayashi, after you have taken care of this man, hand him over to Arashi-san here so he can dispose of the body. Hi, Hokage-sama. Then we shall go, Arashir, dispose of the body, and once you are done wait outside the Hokage's office for me to finish. I shall let you make an offer, Reikage-dano. Minato said. They had just returned from the Hyuga mansion and Minato especially was quite tired. It seemed to be one thing after another today, he thought. Hokage-dano, I ask you for a favor that will hopefully be appropriate to ensure our alliance stays intact. The Reikage said carefully. He was going to approach the Hokage about this at some stage, and if it could solve the night's issues, he hit two birds with one stone. So it's something that benefits us both? Go on. Minato said, intrigued. What could he have that us getting helps us and him getting rid of it helps him? He pondered. Earlier in the day I explained to you the hardships that my daughter Yugito goes through in Kumogakure no Sato, simply because she is the Jinchuriki of the Nibi no Nikomata. Minato nodded. He knew where this was going. By you handing her over as a reparation for tonight's acts, not only do we gain a potentially strong ninja, but also your worries are alleviated because your daughter could have a better chance here where people don't know of her status. That's correct, Hokage-dano. I thought by you being a similar situation you would have similar thoughts if your son went through what Yugito does. I appeal to you both as a father and a Kage to please accept this. Your counsel would no doubt approve? Minato definitely knew where the guy was coming from, and he was right when he said he'd try anything to help Naruto out if he was forced in a similar situation. It was just sad she had to leave her home to do so. I do see where you're coming from, and for Yugito's sake as much as the sake of our alliance I accept your offer. The Reikage relaxed. Thank you very much, Hokage-dano. You do not know how much this means to me. I just hope that she has a better life here than she did in Kumo. She will. The council will be the only people to learn of her secret, and they will be sworn to secrecy. I must also ask of you to not spread Naruto's status as the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. The people are forbidden from speaking of it in this village, you see. Of course, I wanted to have something similar, but I didn't have the council's support, something I hope to change. What will be her arrangements? He asked. I'm turning into a charity case, Minato sighed mentally. I know the pain of a Jinchuriki through the experiences of my son, and if he were subjected to what she was, I understand he would be a mental wreck. Am I right in assuming this of Yugito? Somewhat only recently have they started training her into a weapon, but even so, that combined with the hatred of the villagers, she is not completely stable. I see. She shall reside in my household. I believe her and Naruto got along well. Thank you, Minato nodded. Usually children start at the academy at 8 years old, however I think it's best if she is held back from the academy for a little bit to adapt to life in Konoha, and to get her back on track mentally. I agree, Hokage-dano. May I request one thing more of you? Minato nodded. She seems more comfortable with your son Naruto than I have ever seen her with anyone else. Would it be too much to ask for her to be kept until his class at the academy? I can arrange that, but I can't guarantee they will be on the same team. I can't have overpowered teams. I understand that. I thank you for everything. I hope that Yugito does Konoha well. The Reikage said. I hope that Konoha does Yugito well. As do I. We shall officiate it tomorrow morning before I leave. Yes, please meet here with Yugito at 9 tomorrow morning. It shall be done. Thank you again for everything you have done, Hokage-dano. The Reikage said. He then stood and bowed to Minato. Usually one Kage would never bow to another, but the Reikage was in Minato's debt, and was extremely grateful for what he had done. I'll look after her, Minato said as he also stood up. I know. Naruto said / moaned as he stretched his tired body. Yesterday had been a big day for the kid. While he had a lot of stamina and would usually just keep going and going and going, playing all day the day before seemed to tire him out. He hopped out of bed and noticed that he was still in his clothes from yesterday. He didn't remember actually falling asleep. All he remembers is talking to Ayumi and Kurenai, and then nothing. He shrugged. Didn't matter, he figured. He moved over to his wardrobe and opened it. He searched the rack until he found his favorite shirt. An orange one with a picture of a frog on the front. The frog on the front reminded him of Gamakichi, one of his father's younger summons. He loved his father's summons. He remembers the time when he first read on Gamabunta. It was only a few months ago. He slipped the shirt and walked out of his room down to the living room. Waiting for him, sitting on the two-seater lounge, was his mother and father, dressed rather formally, which wasn't anything unusual. Some days they had formal things they needed to do, and because his mother had retired from being a ninja after his birth, she was generally Minato's assistant at the office when she wasn't looking after Naruto, and would often attend those formal meetings. Something he would soon learn was that today was going to be a little different for him. He sat down on the other lounge across from his parents, looking quite sleepy, and his eyelids dropping every few seconds. So Naruto-kun, you met Kurina yesterday, how was she? Minato asked innocently. She was pretty nice, he said the last bit rather quickly. They preyed on his weakness. He really wasn't aware of anything once he woke up, not until he got his ramen into him, which would often have to wait until he was free of his mother's reign. She didn't like him eating the stuff, said it would stunt his growth. Minato and Kushina smiled. That's nice, son, Minato said. Would you like to marry her? Minato asked. Nanny? I'm 5 years old. I don't want to be tied down and married. Nagging women, Naruto! Kushina screamed before lunging for her son. He quickly dodged to the side and ran off out the door. See you later, he called. Oh no you don't! Kushina screamed back before she chased him out of the door. They're both exactly the same, both children, Minato mumbled. Minato, yes dear, he called back before he too joined the chase. They did need to speak to him about what was going to happen with Anko, and now Yugito too. Kushina fully supported Minato's decision, and was glad to see some more females in the house. Minato paled at that. With them three, plus Tsunade, Shizen and Rin when they came over, poor guy. Shizen! Rin! Kakashi! He heard Kushina call. Meanwhile Minato kept walking in the direction that he saw Naruto heading. Sure, he was the yellow flash, and could have caught him by now, but unless the two of them got it out of their system now, it would just cause problems. Yeah, better to just let them get it out, he figured. As he walked outside of the gates he noticed Tsunade, Shizen, Kakashi and Rin all approaching. Yo! Kakashi said. What's up? Naruto said he didn't want to get married because of nagging women and Kushina is chasing him. He what? Screamed the females. He's gonna get it now, said Rin as she, Shizen and Tsunade all joined the chase. Poor kid, both Kakashi and Minato said as they stood at the gate. Wanna go eat? Minato asked. Did Kushina cook it? Kakashi asked. Yep, okay. After he had been caught, bashed 1 2 3 4 times over the head by 4 separate females, his body had been dragged home and thrown on the lounge rather unceremoniously. Now that everyone was up and at the house, Kushina made breakfast for everyone. Anko still hadn't woken up, which was surprising considering the amount of noise. Everyone seemed to love Kushina's cooking, especially Kakashi, who was there pretty much every meal. It was the only thing that he wasn't late for, and people had actually gone as far as telling him that they had a meal cooked by Kushina to get to some places on time. He looked absolutely defeated when he realized there was nothing there. At the end of the meal they sat around the table with the spotlight on Naruto. Naruto, we need to talk, Minato said. What about? He asked. Some things have happened which I'll tell you later on, but because of these things 2 people will be moving in with us. Oh, in the other houses? He asked. No. Both of them will be living here in this house with us. One you have met before and the other is someone who is here at the moment upstairs, he replied. Cool. Who is it? Mitarashi Anko. She returned to the village yesterday, and will be living with us. I won't tell you exactly what happened, but some people see her as a traitor in this village. I need you to know that she is not a traitor and not to listen to what other people say, okay? Also, I don't want you asking her about what happened. Okay, Tsu-san, I promise I won't ask her about it. Who is the other person? He hadn't met her yet, so he didn't have much of an opinion on her, but he knew if his father let her stay she was probably going to be pretty nice. Thank you, son. The other person is someone you met yesterday, Yugito. That shocked him, but in a good way. Yada! Yugito-chan gets to stay. He jumped up and ran around the house and was what looked like telling all the walls that Yugito was coming to stay. After a while of everyone else laughing at him and eventually tapping their fingers on the table, getting agitated, Kushina screamed, Naruto, get here! Fearing for his life, Naruto complied immediately and waited for them to continue talking. You need to go get dressed nicely and meet us back here in 10 minutes. That's when we are going to my office and meeting the Reikage and Yugito-chan. Kushina said. Shizen, would you mind helping Naruto get dressed? I can't trust him to get dressed on his own. Of course. Come on, Narukun. Hi, once is enough. Shizen snapped back. He laughed, and ran upstairs with Shizen on pursuit. Minato, Kushina and Naruto arrived at the Hokage's office at 8:30, decked out in their formal wear for the occasion. Naruto, after much insistence from Shizen, was wearing a plain crimson yukata with a black obi. Again his hair looked as though someone tried to brush it without much success. The 3 of them sat in the chairs within the office, and while Minato and Kushina were talking, Naruto was thinking about seeing Yugito again. He had a lot of fun with her yesterday and definitely wanted to see her again. But he didn't think that he would get to see her again so soon. We can play with my other friends like Sakura-chan, Ino, Sasuke, Shikamaru and all the others. We can go get ramen and ice cream and I can show her the Hokage monument, he thought, and the list went on and on of what he wanted to do with Yugito. He was cut short from his musings when there was a knock on the door. Minato and Kushina stood and Minato called for them to come in. In walked the Reikage, Erasure and finally a nervous but happy-looking Yugito. They stood in front of the Hokage and each gave their greetings, Erasure and Yugito in the formal manner that they had been taught in front of such company. The handing over of Yugito didn't take long with the Reikage and the Hokage only having to sign a few forms claiming that he released her into citizenship with Konoha and that, by handing her over there would be no bad blood between Konoha and Kumo regarding the incident that took place at the Hyuga compound the night before. The whole time Naruto and Yugito were busting to be able to get out and play with each other again, and when they were finally told it was time to leave they couldn't be happier. Yugito was sad to see her father and her uncle leaving her, but after what her father had said that morning, she knew that this was what they both wanted. Flashback. The Reikage sat at the table of the hotel he was staying at trying to think of what to say to his daughter about her new situation. He was sure that she would be happy about it but still wanted to be careful about how he told her. Finally she emerged from her room and took a seat at the same table still looking a little sleepy. Yugito had a fair bit of stamina for her age but it seemed as though yesterday was a big day for her, and had really worn her out. At that time the Reikage knew that this was the best thing for her. There really wasn't much of a chance for her in Kumo. Not like there was in Konoha. Yugito, there is something we need to speak about. He started. She nodded sleepily and he continued. You're not happy, are you, in Kumo? I want you to be honest. She shook her head. Not really, the people are mean and what I have to do for training I don't like it too, Sama. She replied honestly. I know and I'm truly sorry, Yugito-chan, I really didn't want it to happen like that. I know, she replied. She noticed that her father tried to stop as much of what was happening as he could, but in Kumo it appeared as though the council carried even more power than the Reikage did and therefore was overruled. It was the wish of the council of Kumogakure that she was to be made into their weapon. Last night a jounin from Kumogakure tried to kidnap the Hyuga clan heir without my authorization. He was caught and because of this, we are forced to give something to excuse ourselves for his actions. Yugito-chan, I offered for you to stay in Konoha as reparations. I believe that you will have a better life here. Really too, Sama? Can I really stay here? Yes, you can really stay here. He replied happily. It wasn't often he saw his daughter display emotion and he was quite happy to see it. I want you to be happy and have a nice life here in Konoha. I'm just sorry that it isn't possible in Kumo. Yugito went and hugged her father in a rare display of emotion. Thank you, Otosama. Flashback end. After the meeting and seeing the Reikage and Erasure off, the four of them returned home to get Yugito settled in. When they finally arrived they noticed that Anko was finally up and exploring the house. Hello, Anko-chan. Kushina said as they made their way inside. Anko spun around and looked at who was approaching. She noticed Minato and Kushina, and the little boy from the pictures downstairs which she gathered was their son, and along with them was another girl which she hadn't seen before. She had long blonde hair that went to her mid-back and had slit purple eyes that looked like a cat. She wore a green dress and appeared to be about 8 or 9 years old. Hello, Kushina-sama, Hokage-sama, and just Kushina and Minato when we are at home, Anko-chan, and this is Naruto and Yugito. Naruto is our son and Yugito will be staying here as well. Why don't you all go and play and get to know each other before we go shopping and get you girls some clothes and things for your rooms? Minato said. Oh, I don't have any money. Anko replied ashamedly. She looked down at the floor not wanting to face them. Nonsense. Minato said. You'll both be staying in this house and are like family. We'll cover your costs. I can't ask you to do, Anko said before she was cut off by Kushina. You didn't. We told you that's how it's going to be, so go get to know each other, and we'll be leaving in an hour. Play nice, she said before both she and Minato sort of disappeared. The three of them sat down and talked for a while just trying to get to know each other a bit more. Anko found even though he was only 5 years old and she had just met him, Naruto was extremely easy to talk to and found herself getting along with him. She knew she was going to fit in here. She didn't know how she knew, she just did. Yugito, having only met Naruto the day before, already found him easy to get along with and seemed to enjoy herself in his presence. Even though he was 3 years younger than he was, she got along with him better than anyone else before and wasn't sure why. One thing that she knew already, that life was going to be a lot better in Konoha than it ever was in Kumo, and couldn't wait to see how things turned out. Yep, she was going to like it here in Konoha. 8-year-old Naruto sat in his lounge room absolutely devastated. His world was just upturned with the discovery of one little box. One little box that had so much in it, so much that it made him question everything that he is. No, everything he thought he was. He had innocently walked into the family library because he was bored and stumbled upon a small wooden box. On the box was his name, so he thought there was no problem in opening it. Oh, how wrong he was. In the box were 5 things. A letter addressed to him, 2 scrolls, a tri-pronged kunai and a set of keys. He recognized the odd-looking kunai from his father's signature technique, the Haraishin no Jutsu. The scrolls held instructions to the Haraishin no Jutsu and also the Rasengan. The set of keys he knew were to the Namake's estate, but the letter was what changed it all. He opened it and read it again, just to make sure there were no mistakes. Dear Naruto, I'm not sure when you will receive this, but I have entrusted it to Kakashi to give to you when he thinks you are ready. First of all, I'm sorry that I won't be there for you as a father should, and I'm sorry for what I'm about to do. Just recently the Kyuubi no Kitsune started to attack our village. I went to the battlefield before, but I am afraid that there was nothing I could do. That leaves me with only one option. I need to use a forbidden sealing technique to seal the beast away, which will require my life to be taken as payment. To seal such a beast it needs to have a human container, a newborn. I'm sorry my son, but you are the only one to be born on this day. Your mother, Namake's Kushina, formerly Uzumaki Kushina of Whirlpool, is currently in labor. When you are born I will immediately have to seal it within you. From what it seems your mother is not in good condition, and I fear the worst for her. I am sorry that this night takes away so much from you, but if I don't seal it within you, Konoha will burn to the ground. I hope you can forgive me, but I understand if you don't. I have left you instructions to two of my prize techniques, the Hiraishin no Jutsu and the Rasengan. While the instructions to the Rasengan are complete, I have left only half of the instructions for the Hiraishin. It is my hope that you can perhaps use the basis of the technique and surpass what even I have done with it. I know that this doesn't come close to making it up for not being there, but I hope it's a start. The last thing I give to you is the keys to the Namake's compound. As it stands, you are the last of the Namakes. Our fellow clansmen have all been victim to the Kyuubi this very night, and that leaves you as the sole heir. I know that one day you will grow into a fine man and an even finer shinobi. Know this. Whatever you do, your mother and I will be looking down, and know that we are proud. P.S. I'm sure your mother would like to see a lot of grandchildren running around the old compound. Love your father, Namake's Minato. Once again his eyes were glistened with unshed tears threatening to fall down his face. He questioned if he himself was the Kyuubi, that perhaps because it was inside him that he was turning into the monster that had tried to destroy his home not so long ago. The one that was supposed to have killed his father, and what had killed the other family members that he could have had. Why are people nice to me? He mentally questioned himself. People lost family and friends to it, don't I just remind them of the demon? Does that make me a demon myself? He tried to look back on his life to see if there was anyone that was like that. He could recall a few occasions but nowhere near as many as he thought there should be. No, he felt that he deserved a lot worse. He wiped his face of his tears and stuffed everything back in the box. He wanted to keep what it contained, but he still needed to speak to his father. He needed to make sure there were no mistakes, and that what that letter had said was true. He picked up the box and stuffed it in his shirt, hoping it would be concealed enough until he got to his room. He quickly made his way out of the library, and quietly moved to his room, trying not to draw attention to himself. He made it to his room and decided to leave to see his father. He should still be at the Hokage's tower at this time, so that's where he planned to go. He carefully hid the box and walked out of the room into the kitchen where Yugito was. Yugito settling into Konoha was quite easy, but a lot of people still saw her as an enemy after the last shinobi war, and as such, many people treated her with hostility. The only person that she spoke to freely was Naruto. For some reason she felt a connection with Naruto, like she could feel safe. Not once had this feeling been disproved, so she decided to go with it. She would communicate with Minato, Kushina and Anko too, but to a lesser extent. They certainly made her feel comfortable, but it was just taking a little longer to adapt to the different circumstances than was expected. "Ohio Naruto-kun, how are you this morning?" she asked. She was sitting at the breakfast bar eating some cereal. She was still wearing her purple cat pajamas, which consisted of a button-up shirt and long pants. Her blonde hair traveling between her shoulders and her mid-back combined, with her delicate features and purple slitted eyes, made her quite the looker in her age group. But due to being an outsider and some sort of an enemy, she was out of bounds to many. "Ohio, Yugito-chan, I'm going to see Tsunade at his office in a moment," he replied as he pulled a carton of milk out of the fridge. "Oh, let me get dressed and I'll be right with you." Since she had arrived in Konoha, the two were inseparable. She wouldn't go anywhere without him, and after a while he got used to it and enjoyed her company. He knew there wasn't any point in arguing with her, she always seemed to win anyway. "Okay Yugito-chan, but I need to talk to him privately, it's important." "Okay Naruto-kun, I'll wait outside," she replied. As long as she was near him it was going to be fine. After a few minutes Yugito emerged wearing a light blue shirt that was just a little too small, exaggerating her features, and a pair of tight jeans that she had only bought a few days ago. She always wanted to look good for her Naruto-kun. Yes, over the 3 years since she had moved in with Naruto she had started to fall for Naruto. Not that she knew that. Hell, she didn't even know what having a crush on someone was like. All she knew was that she really likes him and wants to be around him all the time. Naruto also had a crush on Yugito, but he was only 8 years old. He hardly knew what a crush was. That, and he felt the same for a few others, so he thought it was just a normal feeling for good friends. He nodded to her, and they walked outside the house and proceeded to the gates of the Namake's compound. As they made their way out they noticed that everyone else was gone. They knew Anko was with her team for training, she was up early, and would be back soon. Tsunade and Shizen got suckered into running the hospital, which is where he knew they were, and his mother was likely at the office with his father. "Good, I can speak to her too," he thought. As they walked through the village, he really paid attention to the people. He was trying to look for any signs of malice in his direction, any hate, any glares, anything. The only thing he noticed that people still stared at Yugito. She had been in Konoha for a little over 3 years now, but people still treated her as an outsider, something that deeply pissed him off. He'd heard that the Hyugas had even disassociated themselves from the Namikes just because they let Yugito stay in their house. Regardless, the rest of his friends and his parents' friends had taken a liking to Yugito, even though they didn't get to see the real Yugito, the Yugito she was when she was around Naruto. She was much more reserved and distant to other people, but was finally starting to come around to Minato, Kushina and Anko. They noticed they were coming up to the slummier part of Konoha and subconsciously they moved closer to each other. They didn't really like traveling through the place, but it was the shortest way to the Hokage Tower from the estate, so they went through it anyway. They were just about to leave the area when they heard a familiar muffled scream that sounded a lot like "No. Please help me, Anko-chan?" Naruto called out, heading to where he thought he heard her call. He ran and ran, getting more worried the longer he couldn't find her. "Anko-chan!" he yelled again. He ran past the rundown apartment building that for some reason seemed familiar, but he realized it wasn't the best time to ponder such a thing. He ran down the alley beside the apartment building and walked into a scene that neither he nor Yugito would ever forget. Mitarashi Anko walked back from her training more exhausted than she had ever been. It had been a good few years in Konoha, she figured. There was the glares and the insults from the villagers because they thought she was a traitor, but she had friends. While there was only a few of them, they were still good friends. Naruto was her first friend, and while at first it felt weird hanging out with a 5-year-old, she found he was really cool to hang around. He was the one who showed her how to have fun again, and wouldn't ever forget it. They would often do pranks together and were quite good. Even Minato was quite proud of the two, not that he would ever tell them that, for fear of Kushina's wrath. The next of her friends was Kurinai. When she returned to the village, she was placed on a 1-month probation, and as long as she could pass the genin exam, would be placed on a team with people from her age. She was placed on a team with Yuhi Kurinai and Uchiha Megami. Kurinai and Anko hit it off from the start, but Megami seemed to be distant and snobbish like many of the Uchiha, thinking they were superior to everyone, similar to the Hyuga clan. Needless to say, she didn't get along with her very well. She was friendly with Yugito, but she wasn't close to her as she was to Naruto and Kurinai. She was so lost in her thoughts of her past few years that she didn't notice where she was walking. She finally took in her surroundings when she was surrounded by 5 chunin, at least 3 years her senior. She noticed she was in District 44, the slummiest area in Konoha, and feared the worst. Well boys, what do we have here? If it isn't the traitor in the flesh, what seemed to be the leader said before he was cut off by Anko. "What do you want?" she snapped. "Well, that's not very nice now, is it?" one of the others said. They moved in closer to her, pushing her down into an alley. She wasn't stupid. She knew that she couldn't defend herself against 5 chunin, much less in her current state. The one she assumed as the leader took another step forward and cupped her cheek. She quickly slapped it away and walked further back. Now she was really worried. She spat in his face and went to slap him. He caught her hand and twisted it around against her back and up against the wall of the alley. "Nah," he said. "This is going to be a lot easier for the both of us if you just be a good girl and take it. It's not like anyone is going to come and save a traitor like you, are they, bitch?" He reached around and grabbed her left breast, kneading it in his right hand. She started to cry. There was nothing she could do, but when she felt another of them come forward and feel up her other breast, she snapped and kicked the guy in the crotch. The guy doubled over in pain while one of his friends came forward and punched her in the side of the face, the whole while the guy from behind feeling her up. Blood was trickling down her face, the force of the blow almost enough to send her fatigued and distressed body into unconsciousness. "You bitch," the guy on the ground yelled at her. He staggered up and pulled her off the wall and punched her in the stomach. She started crying even more, knowing that she was completely helpless and there was nothing she could do. All of this was because people thought she was a traitor, because she was taken by that snake bastard. It was all his fault. Everything that had gone wrong in her life was, and if she got out of this alive she would make sure that he got what he deserved. She started to scream when she felt someone cut her pants off. "Help me!" she screamed. She was desperate, anything but this, not this. "Help me!" She thrashed and kicked wildly when her underwear was taken off. This was it, she was going to be raped in her own village, one that she had nothing but sworn to protect, and there wasn't anything she could do about it. "No! Please help me!" she screamed again. The teens just sniggered and pushed her up against the wall as the leader pulled down his own pants and rapidly thrust it inside of her. "H," she screamed as blood poured down her legs. She thought she could hear screams of Anko-chan but thought she was delirious from the pain she was experiencing. The chunin just kept pulling in and out, ripping her apart. She screamed in pain and thrashed around while he and his friends just laughed at the pain of the traitor and tried to keep her still. That was the scene Naruto and Yugito were welcome to as they turned down the alley. Anko was sprawled against the wall, her face pushed against it, bleeding and facing them, showing them exactly how upset and distressed she was. Her eyes were closed as blood and tears were streaming down her face. She was only wearing her training bra and she was bruised and bloody all over. From what they could see, one of the men was pounding into the back of her, doing what they weren't exactly sure, but one thing they knew was she was being hurt. That was something he wasn't going to let sit. Let her go, he yelled. 4 of them turned to see the newcomers, while the man thrusting was preoccupied with his victim. Ha, the traitor, the outsider, and the demon all in one place. The one closest to them said. They could tell they were all at least Chunin level because of their vests, and knew they were no match for them. Grab him, he said. Naruto, run! Anko screamed. She didn't want them hurt like what they were doing to her. Just go. Run! Not that they were going to, but before they got the chance to turn and run they were grabbed from behind, not giving them the chance to move. Let them go! Anko roared as she continuously got slammed into from behind. She was still screaming from the pain, but getting them out was more important to her than her own well-being. Naruto couldn't take it anymore. He was helpless while Anko was being hurt and God knows what else, and Yugito was being held up. He was angry, angrier than he ever had been before. He could hear Anko screaming in pain and for them to leave. He could hear Yugito struggling against her captor, and the sounds only fueled his rage. Suddenly Naruto was engulfed in a burst of red chakra. It settled down and formed a sort of bubbly cloak over his body. When his body became visible again he was on all 4s and had elongated canines, and the once faint whisker marks on his cheek became thicker and darker. There was also what seemed to be one tail made up from the same substance as the cloak and gave him a feral, almost fox-like look. The feel of his chakra was pure evil, and everyone there knew exactly what it was. The 5 Chunin and Anko because they were there the night of the attack, and Yugito because of her own little guest. The last thing he saw before everything went black was the look of fear on the Chunin's faces, and the look of surprise on his friends. Carnage. That's the only thing Minato could call it. He felt the fox's chakra and rushed to the scene only to see his son tearing into 5 men, tearing off limbs and slicing into their bodies with what looked like claws of chakra. He immediately got behind his son and knocked him out. He turned back around and saw Yugito in the corner vomiting, and Anko was on her knees, naked and crying, trying to cover herself up. He noticed she was beaten and bloody, and considering she was naked he feared for the worst. He threw one of his Hiraishin kunai down at the ground and disappeared to the hospital with a seal that he had already placed there. He rushed his son inside and yelled, "Tsunade! It's Naruto, he needs help!" Some of the other nurses and doctors were a little hesitant to treat him because everyone had felt the chakra surge and was a little frightened as to what it could mean. They thought that the Kyuubi no Kitsune had once again been set free on Konoha. Tsunade came rushing through the corridors until she met up with Minato. "What happened?" she asked. "I don't know, but when I got there he had red chakra all around him. Anko's hurt, I think she may have been raped, and that's what set Naruto off. I'm about to go back and get her." With that he disappeared in a flash of yellow, startling some, but Tsunade had seen it before and set her sights on Naruto, who lay on a hospital bed awaiting treatment. He seemed to be suffering from chakra burns to his whole body, but it seemed to be healing. It was possible that he was suffering from severe chakra depletion, as he hadn't used chakra before and had used so much in one go. "Hang on, Naruto," Tsunade thought as she rushed him into the nearest available room. As soon as Minato got back he immediately went over to Anko and tried to pick her up. She backed away and screamed, "Get away from me." He backed off immediately, knowing exactly why she was upset, and disappeared once again in a flash of yellow. He arrived at the front of his house, where he quickly ran inside to retrieve his wife. "Kushina! Come quick, Anko's been hurt, and I need you to help her." Kushina quickly ran down the stairs, but before she could ask what happened they disappeared in a flash of yellow and red. As soon as she arrived at the scene, she immediately went over to Anko and embraced her tightly. She got Minato's cloak off of him, and wrapped it around her, and brought her close. She was rubbing her hands through her hair, trying to reassure it was going to be okay. Anko sat there grasping onto Kushina and sobbing into her chest. She tried to tell herself that she was safe, that Naruto had saved her, that there was nothing more to worry about. Naruto, he had saved her, and now she needed him. She needed him because she felt safe with him. He was her savior, something that she would be forever grateful for. How far would they have gone? Would they have stopped? Would she have survived? She tried not to think of it, but it was just afresh. It was too strong and something she would never forget. She passed out from the pain, and when Kushina realized it was safe to do so, she called over Minato and had her take him to the hospital. While Minato took care of Anko, Kushina walked over to Yugito and took her into her arms and patted her back. "It's okay, Yugito, it's okay." "Kushina? Is Naruto and Anko alright?" "Yes, Yugito-chan, they're fine. Do you think you can tell me what happened?" she asked. Hesitantly Yugito nodded and began to tell Kushina what they had seen and then what Naruto had done. Flashback. 2 claws of what seemed to be made of chakra shot out of the cloak that was over Naruto. The claws immediately went for the men holding Yugito and Anko and smashed into them, knocking them out of the way, allowing Yugito and Anko to slump to the ground. The claws followed the men and impaled them right through the chest before pulling back out with the men's hearts in their grasp. The claws then sliced at their still and lifeless bodies, presumably for good measure. The other men had literally wet themselves. The killing intent being leaked from Naruto plus the scene of him easily killing their friends was enough to do that to them. They had regained their bearings slightly and attempted to run off. Naruto saw them trying to run and snickered. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked before proceeding to impale, slice and dice the 3 remaining men. Yugito had started to vomit, at which point Minato arrived and knocked his son out. Flashback end. Will they be alright? She asked. I'm sure they will. Tsunade will make sure they're fine, you know that. Kushina replied. She knew physically they would be alright. It was true, Tsunade would take care of that. But the mental damage done to the both of them, Anko especially, would take a long time to heal. That is, if it ever was to heal. Minato arrived back at the hospital with a bloody and beaten Anko wrapped up in his robes. Some of the nurses and doctors looked at her and sneered. Serves the traitor right, a lot of them thought. However, a large burst of killing intent from Minato brought them back around. Get her a bed now, he roared. They immediately ran to get her a bed and to get her seen. Namake's Minato wasn't one to be messed with. Minato-sensei, Rin called. Was that what I think it was? He waited until she was right in front of him and ushered her away from the reception desk. Anko was attacked, he whispered. It seems Naruto witnessed it and lost control. The Kyuubi's chakra somehow leaked, and he killed the ones who attacked her. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but their bodies are barely recognizable. Rin sat there shocked. He killed them? He did. It appears as though Anko was raped by her attackers. That may have been what set him off. They did what? Yes, I'm afraid so. They're both being seen now, and I want to go and see Yugito. Is there anything else you need? He asked, wanting to get to the bottom of this. Oh, the council have arranged an emergency meeting. They sent me to get you. Oh, get Ugh. Kushina should be here soon with Yugito. Once Yugito is settled, I want you to ask Kushina to find out what happened from her and ask her to come to the meeting. Get some ANBU to clean up the mess down in District 44, next to the large apartment block. I want you to find Kakashi and anyone else you can trust to try and calm the villagers down. I'll see you later. Hi, Minato-sensei. She replied before rushing off to find Kakashi. Probably at the memorial stone again, she thought. Better go get this over with, Minato mumbled, disappearing from the hospital in a yellow flash. No! Naruto, you need to stay where you are, Tsunade said as she tried to restrain the child to the bed. It had taken a couple of hours, but she managed to aid the Kyuubi's healing to heal the burns that occurred to his body. She ran a diagnostic on his chakra coils but came up with nothing. There was some massive confusion with the examination. It almost seemed as though there was another set of coils there. She filed the information away for a later date because there didn't seem to be any imminent threat there, and clearly he seemed to be alright. No, I need to go see Anko-chan. Let me go! He yelled as he tried to wriggle his way out of his godmother's grasp. Well, chakra-enhanced grasp. He then came up with an idea. He started to convulse, which startled Tsunade. She let him go and turned to call out for some help. I need some help in here. She turned around and he was gone. The brat tricked me. Naruto, what the hell was that? Asked/screamed Danzo. Sit down and shut up. Minato yelled back. Immediately everyone fell silent and sat down. This afternoon, Anko was attacked by a group of chunin. It appears as though she has been raped. He sort of trailed off towards the end. At the moment I don't know the circumstances of the attack, but if I find out that this was planned, there will be hell to pay. Many of the council members were outraged by the actions while a few just sat there nonchalantly, not really caring for her. Even some of the council members thought of her as a traitor and thought that anything she got she deserved. That's sad to hear, said Koharu, sounding far from sincere. But that was the Kyuubi we felt, was it not? No. It was not, he replied. What do you mean it wasn't? That's exactly what we felt, yelled Mitarashi Mika. Since Minato had allowed her traitor of a daughter into his house, she, like the Hyugas, had disassociated from the Namake's clan. They figured that if they didn't share the same ideals, that they shouldn't be supporting theirs. No, what you felt was my son outraged at the actions of those chunin. It seems as though he was so full of anger that somehow the Kyuubi's chakra leaked out. I haven't been able to properly diagnose the problem, but there were no problems in the power retracting. It seems to react to his emotions. This is an outrage. That's a massacre waiting to happen, yelled Hamura. I'm quite aware that it isn't safe. Then he has to be taken care of, roared Mika. He defends your daughter, and you want him killed? You disgust me, yelled Minato. He was outraged at how the Mitarashi clan treated Anko. On more than one occasion Kushina had to calm him down, else he would have slaughtered most of the clan for some of the things they had done. She is no daughter of mine, Mika roared back. There was no way she was associating herself with that traitor. Minato clenched his fists under the table, trying to calm himself down. There is no risk to the village, I assure you that. This will not happen again, I'll make sure of it. If I hear anything about killing my son, I can assure that person will be dealt with. If it weren't for Naruto, the Kyuubi would have flattened us all. I'm glad that most of the people now treat him with some sort of respect. He paused and looked down to the table. He then looked back up at the room, determination in his eyes. I want all of you to reassure the village that everything is alright. Do not release any, and I mean any information that you have heard here today. You are all dismissed. Slowly everyone but Ayumi walked out of the room. How is she? Ayumi asked. Ayumi, I'm not sure, but she wouldn't let me near her. I just don't want to know what would have happened if Naruto didn't show up when he did. That poor girl, she doesn't deserve anything like that. She said. No, but the village takes a while to come around to things like that. She nodded in agreement, and turned to leave. Oh, and Ayumi Minato said to her retreating form. Yes, what is it, Hokage-sama? She turned and asked. Tell Kurenai what happened. Anko needs her, and although Naruto won't admit it, I'm sure he'd like someone like her to talk to. Of course, I'll do it right away. Why do they have it so rough? Why is it people like those three, who have done nothing wrong, are the ones to be treated like crap? This was something that, as angry as it made him, that Minato could not change. They would have to prove themselves to the villagers. They would need to become strong and perhaps even feared. That was something Minato could do. He would train them to be the best they could be, and maybe then they wouldn't be treated so badly. It was definitely worth trying. He quietly snuck into Anko's room, trying not to alert anyone of his entrance. He quietly closed the door and walked over to the left side of Anko's bed. Shouldn't you be in bed? Naruto cringed. He knew that voice all too well. But Ka-san, I feel fine. I just wanted to see how Anko-chan was, he replied to his mother. He really was worried about Anko. He couldn't even remember what happened after they got caught. It was as though he blacked out. Kushina was about to go and drag him back to bed when Anko stirred. So instead, she made her way to the right side of her bed and slowly started to run her hands through her hair. Anko, are you okay? She softly asked. And Naruto, where's Naruto? She asked softly and slowly, her eyes fluttering. Naruto stood up from the chair he was sitting on and moved closer to the bed. I'm here, Anko-chan, are you okay? His response was her eyes opening rapidly, sitting up slightly and latching onto Naruto's arm. She wrapped her arms around his left arm and brought him in closer. Don't go, she murmured. Kushina smiled at the scene, and the room's other occupant, if not such a serious situation, would have been seething about her touching her husband-to-be. Yes, Kurenai had come around to the fact that he was going to be her husband, and decided to spend some time with him and get to know him. She even brought it upon herself to try and shape him into what an ideal husband should be. Sure, he was only 8, but she figured that the earlier she started the better. She realized while spending time with him that he was a nice and sweet guy. That combined with her shaping, she figured that she really could do worse for a husband. She was cut from her musings when she saw Naruto sit on the bed, allowing Anko to lay back down but still have her hold over Naruto. She seemed to refuse to let go. Obviously she felt safe with Naruto even though he was 8 and untrained, she 15 and trained. A mental thing, she figured. A mental thing that she never wanted to experience. Naruto noticed she was crying and shaking. He really didn't know what to do to make her feel better, but he hated seeing girls cry. He tried to tell her it was alright. It's okay, Anko-chan, it's okay. She relinquished her hold of his arm and wrapped around his waist, resting her face on his stomach. Stay with me? She asked weakly. It really pained Naruto to see her like this. It had taken a while, but he had got her to act normal and to have fun. When she first got back, she was quiet and distant. She didn't talk a lot and kept to herself. Naruto tried hard to get her to open up, and she finally had. Maybe she won't be like normal anymore? He questioned himself mentally. No, I'll make sure she gets better, he thought. Okay, Anko-chan. She kept crying, but she seemed to stop shaking and nuzzled into his side. Arigato. Kurenai and Kushina left the room, deciding to leave the two alone. They both felt sorry for Anko and wanted to do what they could for her, but they realized that Anko wanted Naruto right now. Probably because he had been the one to save her. He was her knight in shining armor. Rin asked me to go to the council chambers. If you need me, I'll be with your father there. I'll see you later, Naruto-kun, Anko-chan. Kushina said as she left. She knew she was probably too late, but she wasn't leaving Anko, not like she was. But she knew that she would be alright with Naruto. That's the only person that she seemed to pay attention to anyway. I need to go home, but if either of you need anything, you know where I am. Kurenai said as she too left. Bye, Ka-san, Kurenai-chan. He had become closer to Kurenai in the past couple of years. He didn't know why, but she seemed to want to spend time with him. He didn't mind though. He really liked her and thought she was very pretty. He also had the same weird feelings for her like he did Yugito and Anko, but like in their cases, thought it was just normal. They closed the door to the room, leaving the two alone. He tried to move off the bed to get more comfortable, but Anko only tightened her hold. Please don't leave, she mumbled sleepily. He figured there was nothing he could do, and he did want to help her however he could. Okay, I'll stay, Anko-chan. He put his legs up on the bed so he was somewhat comfortable. He rested his head against the backboard of the bed and tried to think of what people would do in his situation, in particular what his father would do. He started to rub her back. At first she cringed, but then she realized who it was. She relaxed a little bit more. When she fell asleep, all she knew was that she was safe and warm. You like Naruto, don't you? A little blonde girl asked her friend. They were sitting in the blonde girl's bedroom having girl talk, little girls and their stupid crushes. Maybe, the other girl replied. Oh come on, Sakura, it's so obvious. I swear if Yugito wasn't always next to him, you'd be on top of him. Sakura's eyes seemed to ignite upon hearing the name Yugito. Ugh, she never leaves him alone. Sakura replied. I swear she likes him, Ino. Well, you didn't think you were the only one, did you? That Tamari girl from Suna likes him too. I think he is cute, the one identified as Ino said. I thought you liked Sasuke? Sakura screeched. Ino held her little arms up defensively. I do. I'm just saying, I need to win him over, Sakura said, determination clear in her voice. She needed to make those tramps back off and she wanted to know how to do it. Get strong, beat them off. I'm sure if he knows you're stronger than them he'll like you as well, Ino replied, thinking it'd probably be a good idea to win over her Sasuke as well. You're right. I need to go see Ota-san, he's strong, Sakura exclaimed before standing up. I need to go now, I'll talk to you later, Ino. Thanks for the help, she said as she left the room. Yeah, no problem, she mumbled to herself. I can't let something like that happen again. I don't know what happened exactly, but she got hurt and I couldn't do anything, I just blacked out. I can't let something like that happen again, he thought, still restricted by Anko's sleeping form. He liked it though, he was surprisingly comfortable in his position and really wasn't in a rush to move. It also gave him time to think about what he needed to do to make sure that his precious people didn't get hurt again. To think about what he needed to do in order to get stronger, strong enough to defend everything important to him. He figured it had been a couple of hours since his mother had left, and figured that his mother had subdued Tsunade, else she'd have come barging in here and knocked him out. He knew he wanted to become a ninja, just like his mother and father, and like Kakashi, Rin, Tsunade, Anko and Kurenai. But his father had told him he needed to go through the academy for 4 years, starting in a few days. Sure, the academy was something he needed to do to progress as a ninja, but he wasn't going to get strong enough, fast enough by attending the academy. He just hoped that his father would have a similar take on the situation. It was only a few minutes after he had come up with an idea that the person he wanted to see walked into the room. The person walked over to the bed and started to run a diagnostic on her. How is she, Tsunade-ba-chan? Naruto asked. He knew Tsunade was one of the strongest people alive and figured she would definitely be able to teach him something. Also, if he could heal his teammates and friends, that would be one of the best ways to help them. Of course, he was going to seek training from his mother and father as well as Kakashi and Jiraiya, but he wanted to have a variety of skills, and knew that Tsunade would be the one to seek this training from. She may not be the strongest person around, but she was perhaps the best medic the world had ever seen. Yep, it helped to know people in high places. She was going to belt him for calling her that but decided against it considering the situation they were in. Physically everything is fine, mentally it could take a while for her to get over it. If you hadn't stepped in when you had, I'd hate to know what would have happened, she said, finishing her diagnostic. Could you move so I can give her a proper look over? I can't. When she was awake she grabbed me and won't let go, he replied. I see. It seems as though because he was the one to save her, she feels safe with him and doesn't want to let go. I'm not strong in the workings of the mind, so I don't know how long that's going to last. She may always stay attached to him. Bachan, you said I stepped in, all I did was get there and black out, he said, confused at why she said such a thing. I did pass out, right? You distracted them and your father was able to step in and stop them, she said. She figured out that he didn't remember much. She knew that eventually he would find out, but didn't want to be the one to tell him. He seemed to accept it because he relaxed back for a moment. He realized that the sooner he asked her the better. Tsunade-bachan, he said in a fairly serious tone which surprised Tsunade. What is it, Naruto-kun? She asked, ceasing her examinations and turning to face her godson. She looked in his eyes and noticed something different, something that hadn't been there before. She became more attentive, curious as to what he wanted. Today Anko-chan got hurt and I couldn't do anything. That you know of, Tsunade thought. Could you please train me to be a medic like you, Tsunade-sama? That startled her. Never had she ever thought that Naruto would want to become a medic. He always seemed like he would be a complete offense-based ninja like his parents and Jiraiya. It actually made her proud that he would want to follow in her footsteps. Tell me exactly why you want me to train you and I can give you an answer, she replied. She needed to make sure he was doing this for the right reasons. Someone important got hurt today. I want to get stronger so I can help them. The people important to me, becoming a medic will be a good way to help and protect them. I'm going to ask Toussaint and everyone else for training as well. But this would be really important to me, he replied, the determination flaring in his eyes. Good answer, she replied with a smile. I'm going to make sure you're one of the best medics around. Got it, kid? He nodded gratefully. Get ready to train though, kid. We start next week. I need to make sure your chakra control is up to scratch. You're going to need to work hard. I will. Thanks a lot, Tsunade-bachan, he said, truly grateful for the opportunity. One more condition. He looked at her inquisitively. You call me Tsunade-sensei, Tsunade-sama or Tsunade-shusho? She smirked at the expression of despair. I really don't want to do that, he thought, but he realized it was something he needed to do in order to be able to do what he wanted to do. Hi, Tsunade-sensei. She walked over to him and awkwardly hugged him. We'll work out a schedule so you can train with everyone else, but if you want to become a medic, this will need to be your priority. It isn't something that's easy to learn. I understand, Tsunade-sensei, he replied. This was something he was serious about doing, and he didn't know he wouldn't let anyone down. I need to go. I guess you're fine to go, that is if your girlfriend is going to let you go, she teased. He blushed and hissed. Don't say that, she's just a friend. Oh, I'm sure. Well, you better be nice and I'll see you later. He was tempted to throw something at her but figured naming his new sensei wouldn't be too good a thing. Not that he could have actually hit her, but it wasn't something he was going to admit. She left the room and closed the door, leaving the two alone again. He was still sort of lying on the bed while Anko lay next to Slash on top of Naruto, her arms around his waist and her head on his stomach. She started to whimper a little, so Naruto tried the back rubbing thing again. It seemed to work, as after a minute it died down. He wasn't sure why, but he seemed to think it was something he'd have to get used to. Naruto-kun, a 10-year-old blonde, exclaimed as she made it through the main street of her village. She was wearing a mesh undershirt, and over it a white one-piece outfit and a red belt around her waist. She had her blonde hair in 2 pigtails. She was walking with her brothers, who had heard exactly what she said. "Daydreaming again?" "Tamarine-chan," her redhead brother said. He was wearing plain white t-shirt and a pair of brown shorts. He had dark rings around his eyes, and while he tried to hide it, seemed to be in some sort of distress. He had short red hair, and if the people weren't so scared of him would realize he was quite handsome. "Thinking of your dear Naruto-kun again?" her other brother said. He was wearing a full black bodysuit that made him look like some sort of cat, and purple paint on his face, making him look quite stupid to everyone else. But he seemed to think it was cool, and that was enough for him. Temari started to blush. Her crush on Naruto had started a year after they had first met. The Kages continued to meet every 6 months to check up on the status of their allies and to try to introduce the foreign policies into their own countries. While this was happening, the 3 of them would meet with Yugito and Naruto and hang out for the day. The 3rd time they had gone to Konoha, they also met with some of Naruto's other friends, which were actually children of 8 of the clan heads. Some of them were a little more hostile than others, but slowly they had been warming up to each other. She thought he was such a nice guy, cute too. That was a plus. He was everything she thought she wanted in a man. But she was only 10 years old. All she knew was what she saw in those storybooks about true love and living happily ever after. "I was not," she stammered. She didn't want them knowing about her crush. "Well, yeah, as if it wasn't a little obvious. You know he's 2 years younger," Kankura said. "That doesn't matter, I mean I don't like him like that," she yelled back. She thought she'd saved herself there. "Yeah, right. Oh, of course not," Gaara replied. The thing was that Gaara and sarcasm didn't mix, so it sounded like he was being serious. "Phew. I'm saved," Temari thought. Gaara and Kankura just snickered behind her. That was going to be a useful piece of information. The next to visit Anko and Naruto was Kakashi and Rin. Kakashi smirked under his mask and raised his visible eyebrow, and Rin just gave him a look that said, "You'll hear about this later." For now they let the matter sit. "How is she?" Rin asked as they made their way closer to the bed. "Tsunade-sensei said she is physically fine. When she woke up she grabbed me and didn't let go," he said, trying to explain the situation away. "Tsunade-sensei?" Kakashi questioned. It had always been Tsunade-bachan before. It was humorous every time he'd say it. A chakra-enhanced fist here, a chair or table over there. It was really never a calm moment in the Namikaze compound. "Hi, I asked her to train me to become a medicine. I start next week," he replied. They weren't all that surprised. Even being at such a young age, he was quite a caring and selfless person. They realized that after seeing something like what happened today, he would naturally want to be able to do something. They already knew he had no recollection of what had happened. "Well, I hope that goes well for you," Rin said. She knew it would, though. He would make sure that it would. "Kakashi and I was wondering, would you train me a little bit when Tsunade-sensei isn't?" "Pretty please," Kakashi and Rin laughed. Same old Naruto, they both thought. "Sure, Naruto, I could do that," Kakashi replied. "Thanks, Nisan. The first thing I want to learn is the Kage-bunshin no Jutsu. It looks cool as a Naruto. The Kage-bunshin no Jutsu is a jounin level technique. An 8-year-old can't learn that." "I didn't want to have to use that," he trailed off. "Use what?" Rin asked curiously. "Let's just say I got something that you both don't want anyone seeing," Naruto replied. "What is it exactly?" Kakashi asked, worried as to what it might be. "Obviously you two don't want your relationship getting out." "You don't?" Rin hissed. "Oh, I do. If you teach me that technique you can have all the copies," Naruto said smugly. He knew he had them there. Kakashi sighed. "I hate you, brat, you know that?" Don't be like that, Nisan. "But I'm sure this would be talk of." "He'll do it," Rin said. "Fine," Kakashi said. "I'll teach you tomorrow providing your girlfriend lets you go." He'd only heard it a couple of times, but he was getting sick of it. "She's not my girlfriend," he hissed. Kakashi smirked. "You know, Rin, we could get some pictures of this and blackmail him for those of us." "You could," Naruto replied. But if Ka-san or Anko-chan ever found out, he left the threat hanging, but they knew exactly what to make of it. "You have a point. I'll meet you at the house at lunch tomorrow." "Ja-any," he said before they both just left, not giving him chance to say goodbye. Well, that went well. Nisan will train me and teach me the Kage-bunshin no Jutsu. Things were starting to look up for Naruto, and he smiled. He then realized why he was doing what he was doing and looked down at Anko. "I wasn't strong enough this time, Anko-chan, but I promise next time I will be." "Otua-san," Sakura called out as she made her way into her house. She walked into the dining room where she thought her father would be. As she walked in, he was coming in from outside. "Konnichiwa, Sakura-chan," he said when he noticed his daughter. What can I help you with? Can you please train me to become a ninja? I'll work hard, I promise. She exclaimed. Yamada sat there and thought. Probably some boy. He figured. So who's the boy? He asked. Sakura looked away from her father. No one, but can you please? She pleaded. Who is the boy you want to impress? He asked. She mumbled something that he didn't hear, so he asked. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Naruto-kun, she murmured. Naruto? Well, that's fine. Minato and I have been trying to get you two together for a while. Sakura blushed a little and waited for what her father would have to say. Okay, we start next week when you start the academy. It isn't going to be easy, Sakura. I hope you know that. Hi, arigato Ota-san, she said before she ran up and hugged him. Yamada ran his hands through his daughter's hair. No problem, Sakura-chan. The last person that Naruto needed to see just walked into the hospital room. Ota-san, we need to talk, Naruto said. Minato took a seat at the end of the bed and said, Yes, we do. The last person that Naruto needed to see just walked into the hospital room. Ota-san, we need to talk, Naruto said. Minato took a seat at the end of the bed and said, Yes, we do. I need to speak to you alone, can we talk later? Naruto asked. He didn't want to say what he needed to say in front of Anko. She was asleep, but there was a chance of her waking up and overhearing them. What he was going to talk about with his father was something that he needed to do alone. I understand what I need to say is extremely important. Tsunade says she can leave tomorrow morning. As soon as she can leave, we'll take her home. I'll need to speak to you then, Minato replied. The villagers had reacted just as expected to the feeling of the chakra. There was village-wide panic thinking that the Kyuubi had been released and would be on the rampage. The council members, Kushina, Rin and some of Minato's closer friends had assisted in calming the village, but any respect that the villagers possessed for Naruto had disappeared. 90% of the village no longer trusted the seal, or Naruto. Most of these people had been calling for his head ever since. They didn't want to risk being ravaged by the beast a second time. Therefore, Minato didn't want Naruto going out into the streets and being harassed by the people. He knew it was time to tell him about Kyuubi, about the seal, everything. He thought he should plan something to say but eventually thought it best to wing it. He hadn't told Kushina what he intended to do, but figured she'd understand. It was for the best. Okay, Tsu-san, he replied. Just as Minato was about to leave the room, he decided to ask one of the few things that he could. Ano Tsu-san? Yeah? What is it? He asked as he turned back around and faced his son. Today Anko-chan was hurt, and I wasn't strong enough to defend her. You're the strongest person in the village. Can you please train me? Minato smiled at his son. Of course I will. I can't have my son getting beat around. I'm going to train you, Yugito and Anko. I'll start training you and Yugito next week when you start at the academy. Oh, and congratulations on the training with Tsunade. We'll train around that. You start straight after you get home until Tsunade wants to train you. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, thanks Ota-san, Naruto said as his father made his way out of the room. I promise Anko-chan I'll get stronger. I promise. Anko smiled and nuzzled into Naruto even more. Arigato Naruto-kun. Anko was released the day after but wouldn't actually leave until Naruto reassured her that it would only take a moment, and he would be right there. Reluctantly she let go of Naruto and allowed Minato to take her home. He handed her over to Kushina and left to go and get Naruto. Kushina took Anko straight up to her room to let her get some more rest. It had only been about 24 hours since the attack and she was still weak and distressed. It was the hope of Tsunade that her being in a familiar environment might help along the healing process. She hoped that Anko would let go of Naruto too. She didn't want her getting too attached to him. She needed to be somewhat independent again. Kushina set her down on her bed and sat next to her. Since she moved in, they had updated her room from the dull guest room it used to be. She had gotten a white bed cover with pink polka dots on it, on top of the 4-poster bed. There was a desk and a bookcase on the opposite wall, something that she didn't use too much. She liked the maroon color on the walls, so she decided to keep the walls the color they were. It's going to be alright, Anko-chan, Kushina said softly. Thankfully she hadn't gone through something like that and didn't really know if it would be alright. But she had to try and build up her confidence and get her back to her old self. They were going to make sure she got better. Anko was feeling better, but the events kept rolling over in her mind. It was only when she felt safe in Naruto's arms did they stop. Naruto had done a lot for Anko and as yet he didn't even know it. She was so incredibly grateful for what he had done, and even after the incident when he had stayed at her bedside. She wasn't sure why she felt so safe around him, wanted to be around him, yet at the moment wanted no more to do with any other male. Minato was the only other male she would let anywhere near her. I know, she replied. She was trying to sound strong, but all she really wanted was Naruto to be back. Minato quickly grabbed Naruto and disappeared in another yellow flash and disappeared. The two of them reappeared in the Hokage's office. Here is the best place to talk, son, Minato said, taking a seat at his desk. Naruto sat across from his father and got comfortable. He figured this could take a while. I need to start at the beginning. The night you were born, Minato started. He leaned forward on his desk as he too tried to get comfortable. Naruto realized that he might be telling him about the very thing that he wanted to talk to his father about. Perfect, he thought to himself. The night you were born, as you know, was the same night that the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked our village. Minato said. Yeah, I know that. What does it have to do with anything? He asked, trying to sound confused. Minato picked up on the false tone but thought nothing of it. The Kyuubi no Kitsune is one of the 9 legendary bijou. In fact, it's the strongest of them all and was known and often referred to as the Demon Lord. All of the bijou are immortal and can't be defeated by human means. Minato trailed off, unsure as of what to say. So what did you do? You did beat it, didn't you? Now he was a little worried. The letter did say that he would die during the sealing, so what happened? I was forced to summon the Shinigami and seal the beast away. The technique I used was the Shiki Fujin. The problem with sealing away such a beast is that it can't be in an inanimate object. If I were to seal it away, it had to be within a human. A newborn. Actually, if it were in a newborn, the baby would grow with its chakra slowly merging into the child's chakra supplies. Naruto, you were the only child born that day. I'm sorry, son, but I had no choice but to seal it within you. This is what Naruto had been waiting for since he had first opened the letter, since he had first learned of his fate as a Jinchuriki. Am I the Kyuubi? He asked. This time he was completely serious. Ever since his father had reminded of the talk that he wanted with him, it was the main question going around in his head. Minato looked shocked. No. Of course not. I sealed the beast's soul within you and its Yin chakra. It is both intertwined with your soul, but its influence can't affect you, he replied. That's all you need to know for now. I see, so I will be able to use its chakra? What if I don't want to use it? I mean, I don't want to use something that's evil, he replied. There was no way he was going to use the chakra of the Demon Lord. Surely it was dangerous for everyone. I understand that, son, but there may come a time where an enemy might be too strong for your power, and to defend you or your friends you might die. You should learn to access it just in case you need it. He nodded in understanding. It was certainly a good idea as a backup, just in case there was something he couldn't handle. I understand too, san. Then the other question he'd wanted to ask came to mind, but he had to be careful about how he asked. Oh, to-san, to use the Shinigami, did you have to make a payment? Minato sat back in his chair. This wasn't something he wanted to go into at the moment. Son, in exchange for the aid of the Shinigami, it costs the user's life. For some reason I was able to survive, but I don't know why. I checked the seal and it seems to be fine. There wasn't anything visibly wrong with it. I see. Well, I'm glad you're still here, Oto-san. Me too, Naruto. But that wasn't the only thing I needed to speak to you about, Minato said. Wait, you mean there's more? He asked, fearing that it was going to get even worse. When Anko was raped. Raped? That's what they were doing? Naruto roared. He didn't know what they were doing at the time, but he knew exactly that was, and he didn't like it at all. Yes, son, it was something horrible that I wish never happened to her. But what do you remember of what happened yesterday? He asked, already knowing what his answer was. I remember arriving there. When we got there, Anko-chan was being hurt, and I told them to let her go. They got me and Yugito-chan, and after a few seconds I just sort of blacked out. He replied, confused. Surely they got all the information they needed from Yugito? You didn't black out, son. In fact, you were the one who stopped them, he replied. That was all he was going to say. He didn't want to tell his son that he killed 5 men. It would destroy him. What? Well, what happened? He asked. Now he really was confused. If he stopped them, he sure had no recollection of it. This is what we got from Yugito. When you got angry at those Chunin for what they were doing, the Kyuubi's chakra came out and enhanced your strength and speed. You were able to stop them from what they were doing to Anko. So it saved Anko-chan? The fox's chakra? He asked. If it had, it was definitely something he was going to have to learn to control. Yes, however, too much of it, and you won't be able to control it. The thing is, son, people felt the chakra and got scared. The people think it's unsafe for you to be alive. They think that the Kyuubi might be released. The people are going to be angry towards you, or scared at you. You need to know that you aren't the Kyuubi, but people are going to treat you as thought you are. What? Why would they do that? He asked. People fear what they don't understand, my son. I'm sorry that you have to go through this, but all they know is the fear they felt when the Kyuubi attacked, and then what they felt yesterday. I understand. I guess the Kyuubi was responsible for a lot of people dying. If they were reminded by that, they would get scared. He replied understandingly. If blaming me makes them feel a little better, I can understand that, and I'll put up with it. If I can be of some help to them, I will, even if they have to take out their anger out on me. Minato sat there shocked almost to silence. Why? Why would you accept such a thing? Naruto stood up from his chair, leaving Minato confused. He turned away from his father and spoke to the floor. One day I'm going to be the Hokage. I'm going to prove to them all that even though the Kyuubi is inside me, I'm going to be strong and I'll prove myself to them. I'm going to show them all. Minato smiled widely at him. That's my son. Now, shall we go home? Yeah, I think Anko-chan's going to be angry I took so long. Oh, who knows about the Kyuubi? Minato stood up and walked over to his son. Everyone who is alive and can remember the Kyuubi attack. A week after the attack, I announced what happened to the village. Things didn't go too smoothly and I made it an S-rank secret, never to be spoken of again. It was to give you a chance with the younger children. Okay, well, let's go then, Naruto said. Yeah, let's go, Minato replied before he grabbed his son and Hira shined away. Their arrival was quite uneventful. Naruto and Minato went up to see Anko and Kushina, who was still in with her, and Naruto went and sat down with her. Meanwhile, Minato and Kushina stood back, giving her the space she needed. While Naruto was away, Anko realized that she really did want him there, but she knew he couldn't stay in her arms all day long. Yes, that was how she wanted it, but she knew that he couldn't just sit around doing nothing. Naruto sat on the side of the bed and Anko reached over and held his right hand. "Thank you, Naruto-kun," Anko said. "It's alright, Anko-chan. If you need anything else, just ask, okay?" he said, giving her a smile. He was at least a little happier that he had been able to stop her attackers. The only problem was that it wasn't his power that had done so. It was the Kyuubi's. "Just stay here a little bit longer." "I'm sorry, but I just really want you here for a little while longer," she asked. He nodded in understanding and smiled at her. "Okay, but I need to go see Kakashi and Aizen after lunch for a little bit, but I'll be back after it." He didn't really want to leave her. He realized that she was probably upset right now, but this was for her sake as much as his own. "Okay, thank you, Naruto-kun." She knew that she had to be strong without Naruto, but at the moment, with the previous day's events so fresh, she needed him for a little while longer. Just a little bit. Minato and Kushina silently left the room to go about their own duties. Minato to return to the Hokage's office and Kushina to make something for everyone for lunch. Kakashi and Rin attended lunch as usual. The two seemed to always be there for meals. It wasn't that they couldn't make one themselves, they just liked Kushina's cooking. She didn't mind though. To her and Minato they were a part of the family, as much as Yugito, Anko and Naruto were. They were just about done when Kushina suddenly said, "Oh Naruto, I forgot to ask about your training. I heard you're going to be Tsunade's new apprentice." "Hi. I asked her in the hospital, and she said she would. I start next week when I start the academy. Plus, Ota-san and Kakashi and Aizen are going to help me out too," Naruto replied, quite happy as to who he had to teach him. "Well, aren't you lucky? You're training with 3 of Konoha's top ninja. I'm sure if you ask Sandaime-sama or Jiraiya they'll give you a hand when you need it," Kushina said. "Oh yeah. That's a cool idea. I bet they have all sorts of different jutsu." He then got a thoughtful look on his face and paused. "But at the moment I have a lot of training to do with Tsunade-sensei, Kakashi and Aizen and Ota-san," Naruto replied. While he did like the idea of getting training of the other two, he thought that getting that amount of training while still attending the academy would be too much. Better just to learn what Tsunade, Kakashi and Minato knew first. "That's a very good idea, Naruto-kun. So is Kakashi-kun taking you for training now?" Kushina asked her son. Kakashi interjected. He did not want Kushina finding out what he was going to teach her son just yet. "Hi, I'm just going to go over some basics with him," he said smoothly. "Oh okay, well I'm going to go back into the village and get some groceries. Is there anything anyone needs?" They all shook their heads in the negative and bid Kushina farewell as Naruto, Kakashi and Rin all left the house in search of an abandoned training field. There was the dojo in the main house, but Kakashi didn't want anyone finding out about him teaching the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu to an 8-year-old. After Rin explained the basics of molding chakra and hand seals, the different types of techniques and styles there were, learning the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu only took a couple of hours, much to the surprise of Kakashi and Rin. At his young age he could already make 100 Kage Bunshin with no prior training. Kakashi put it down to the Kyuubi's chakra and was certainly impressed. Kakashi pleaded for Naruto not to tell anyone about him learning it, and ended up bribing him with another jutsu for their first official lesson. The only condition was it had to be really cool. Naruto immediately went and sat by Anko's bedside and sat with her until dinner was called. Anko was asleep by that time, so Naruto left her there for the night, thinking that she would be fine. He went and had dinner with the entire family, except Jiraiya and Anko. He had talked to Yugito throughout dinner and apologized that he hadn't been around much, but she said she understood that he needed to be with Anko anyway. The truth was that she was thinking a lot. She was told by Nibi, who she could converse with, that it was Kyuubi's chakra that was leaking from Naruto when he attacked the Chunin, meaning he was the Kyuubi's container. She was both happy and sad that there was another like her, but decided not to tell him about her or that she knew about him. It did, however, make her feel a lot closer to Naruto, even though she didn't think it was possible. The week leading up to the start of the academy was quite uneventful. Anko had slowly come around but was still very attached to Naruto, and still wasn't leaving the house. Kurenai had been over a few times to speak with both Naruto and Anko to try and offer some support if they needed it, which was very much appreciated. By the third day that she had been released from the hospital she had been fine resting, or doing whatever she was doing without Naruto constantly at her bedside. However, since the first night she had been having nightmares and would sneak into Naruto's bed to lay with him. Minato and Kushina knew of it, and knew that it was harmless, so let it be, but they were worried that it was going to be a long time before Anko was back to what they had come to know as normal. Minato, Kakashi and Tsunade had got together to discuss a sort of schedule for Naruto's training. Minato would train him in the morning before he went to the academy. Tsunade would have him immediately after the academy and on Saturdays. And Kakashi would get him on the Sunday, and any time that either Tsunade or Minato couldn't train him, he would go with Tsunade if Kakashi was unavailable on the Sunday. All in all, he liked his schedule and knew that he was going to be strong in no time. It was the day of the start of the academy for Yugito and Naruto, and they were both a little nervous about it. They walked with Minato, Kushina, Kakashi and Rin to the academy gates for their orientation day. Minato had to give a speech but decided to walk with them and get there a little earlier. When they arrived, Naruto and Yugito noticed that all their friends were there, starting the academy with them. There was Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto had become friends with him due to their fathers being friends. Although neither had mentioned anything of it, they both knew that there was going to be rivalry between them. There was also Haruno Sakura. Sakura was another one of the females that Naruto had different and distinct feelings for. While recently they had been getting stronger towards Anko, he knew he had stronger than normal feelings for her, similar to how he felt for the one standing next to him. Her father and his father were also very good friends, which had meant that they had also spent a lot of time together. Next was Hyuga Hinata. She was a little weird in Naruto's opinion, and she always seemed to be staring at him. They hadn't seen much of each other since Yugito had moved in, because the Hyuga were against Kyumo, which Yugito had formerly been a part of. It didn't really bother Naruto, he didn't like her that much anyway. Standing a little to the right of her was Inuzuka Kiba and his dog Akamaru. He and Naruto got along fairly well due to them being quite similar in personality. If he wasn't pulling pranks with Anko, Kiba would usually be with him, having some skill at the activity himself. While they didn't spend too much time together, they were certainly friends. Standing off to the side was Aburame Shino. He quite liked the boy, respecting the fact that he appreciated silence. He also knew that while he didn't look like it, he was a very smart and analytical person, something he and Shikamaru had found out while playing shogi. Naruto Shikamaru was lying down on the ground on a patch of grass watching the clouds pass by. His best friend Akimichi Chuji sat next to him eating a packet of chips. They got along quite well with Naruto but weren't as close as Kiba or Sasuke was. They tended to hang out once in a while, but it wasn't a consistent thing. However, Shikamaru and Naruto would often play shogi while their fathers were talking business. Yamanaka Ino was next to Sakura whispering something to her. He and Ino weren't particularly close, but she was friends with Sakura, so they just hung out anyway. He thought that she was far too obsessed with Sasuke but would never tell her that, else he would feel her wrath. After he had greeted them all, they had been ushered inside where Minato was to give his speech. His speech was about studying hard, becoming strong, and that they should try to stick together and help each other out. Naruto noticed that apart from his 9 friends and their families, everyone else was steering clear of him. After his speech, Minato and the others all left to do what they needed to, leaving Naruto, his friends and another 20 or so students waiting for their instructions. Once the Chunin sensei at the front of the room began to speak, they leaned forward in anticipation. "Get out your books," he said. "Today we start learning about Konoha's history." The class all groaned. "This isn't going to make me stronger." Nearly all of them thought. The history of Konoha, as fascinating as it was also something Naruto and Yugito had heard before. Living in the same house as a Hokage would do that, but they figured they just had to put up with it, but were happy by the time lunchtime came around. They were sitting by a large tree. It was just the 10 of them, as everyone else was warned to stay away from the demon brat. They were content though. At least they weren't being bothered. They sat around the tree eating and talking about anything that came to mind, as was the normal for this group. "So Naruto, you're getting training of Tsunade-sama?" Shikamaru asked as he lazed about staring at the clouds, a position that people always seemed to find him in. "Yeah, I start today. Actually, I'm worried a little," Naruto replied honestly. He was worried about what he would have to do, but more than that, he was worried that he might let people down. "You'll be fine, Naruto-kun," Sakura said, smiling from beside him. That was how it always was. Sakura would be on one side and as always Yugito on the other. Everyone knew the two liked Naruto well except for Naruto. He seemed to be quite dense with those types of things. "Yes, she is right, Naruto-kun, you will do good," Yugito said. "So you're going to be a medic? Gonna stand at the sidelines like a little girl too?" Sasuke sneered. In his opinion, Naruto could go and learn how to help people. While he was doing that, Sasuke intended to actually train and get stronger. Naruto seemed to become quite angry. "Don't," he started. "What was that, dope? You have no idea why I'm doing what I am doing, so I suggest you shut up. Because if you don't, I'll knock you down, Sasuke," Naruto replied. How dare he insult him for wanting to become a medic? It could very well be his ass he needs to save one day. "I think it's time you both settle down," Shino interjected coolly. He had heard about Anko and had guessed that it was the reason for his decision. "Yeah guys, just calm down," Ino said, trying to take control as usual. They both grunted and turned away from each other. "Sasuke," Naruto said. "What?" Sasuke asked. "Why do you want to get stronger?" Naruto asked. He had a fair idea already, but he wanted to be sure. "I need to prove myself. I need to show my clan that I can be better than Itachi. I will get strong enough to beat him." "To prove yourself, huh? I make a proposal now. Why you strive to be stronger is the wrong path to take. I challenge you, at the end of the academy, to a spar. If I win, we will know whose cause is one worth striving for. You're on. But expect to lose. I won't go easy on you," Sasuke replied arrogantly. "You won't have to," reassured Naruto. He knew that he would be strong enough to take down Sasuke. Fighting for yourself wasn't the way to get stronger. That he was confident of. The rest of the day was as boring as the morning was, but Naruto was preoccupied with thoughts of what he was going to be put through in his training with his godmother. He walked through the village on his way to the hospital. It was a sunny day, he noticed. It wasn't hot, but the sun was bright. There were a few clouds in the sky, but apart from that the scene was unobscured. He looked from side to side and noticed the glares and nasty comments he was receiving. They weren't saying it too loud, but it was loud enough for him to hear. There were murmurs of demon, and why don't you just die? Naruto just ignored them, remembering what he had told his father, that he would bear the insults and malice for the sake of the people. But he would show them what he was made of, and it would start today. He made his way through the last few corridors of the hospital up to Tsunade's office where she had told him she would be. He didn't know why, but he was awfully nervous and his hands were sweating. He knocked on the door and waited for a response. Come in, she called through the door. He opened the door and walked through. Hi, Tsunade-sensei, he said as he made his way over to her desk. Hello, Naruto-kun, how was your day? Tsunade asked. It was alright, I guess. We went over Konoha's history, which I've done before, so it was boring, Naruto said, getting more relaxed the longer he was there. Tsunade chuckled. Well, I'm sure it'll get better as you go along, she replied, knowing all too well that it wouldn't. In her opinion, the academy was a waste of time, but it was something that both the council and the Hokage thought necessary, so she wasn't going to argue. Yeah, well, I hope so, Naruto said. Yes, well, let's start your training. First of all, I send you Tsunade formally take you, Namake's Naruto, to be my apprentice. Do you accept? She asked, taking the sensei role. Hi, I'm Namake's Naruto, thank you for your offer and would be honored to accept. Tsunade smiled. Good to hear, Naruto-kun. Now as it is, I can't start training you yet. There are things that you need to do before you can go learning medical ninjutsu. Like what? He asked impatiently. I'm getting to that, don't interrupt me. Naruto chuckled. Hi, Gomen Nasai. Now, before you can learn any techniques and the like, you need to learn some better chakra control and everything there is to know about the human anatomy, as in the human body. You need to learn about all the different symptoms of diseases and poisons and every little thing that I tell you to remember. Got that? She asked. Hi, Tsunade-sensei, he replied, far from enthusiastically. Reading? He mentally groaned. Okay, when you have completed all the chakra control exercises on this scroll, she said, handing him a scroll. And finished reading all the books in this scroll, she said, reaching for and handing him an even larger scroll. I will begin teaching you everything that I know. Now go start reading. Hi, Tsunade-sensei. Minato ushered two bodies that seemed to be in a trance-like state into the house's dojo. The two zombie-like children turned to face Minato, waiting to see what he had to say. Every morning before you go to the academy, you two and Anko, when she is better, will train with us. The first thing I'll be doing is training you in taijutsu. To do that, I'm going to apply weight seals on you, Minato said. He then took out his seals kit and opened it up. Weight seals? Naruto asked sleepily. Yes, instead of applying chakra weights to you, I place a seal on you and only I can pump more chakra into it. I will apply one to both of your arms and both of your legs. I will also be placing a gravity seal onto Naruto for reasons that I can't go into as of yet. All I can say is that to do that to you, Yugito, would be too dangerous. The other two nodded, not really understanding what he was saying, but decided to agree in their sleepy states anyway. Good, now Yugito, you first. Minato drew seals on Yugito and activated them before pumping a little bit of chakra into each seal. He put enough chakra into it to make the seal at about 20 pounds to each arm and leg. She felt heavy, but it wasn't enough to make her fall. He then walked over to Naruto and did the same thing, but placed enough chakra for the seals to add 30 pounds on each of his arms and legs. He then asked Naruto to lift up his shirt. He drew another seal on his chest with a little 2 in the middle. He activated the seal and immediately Naruto fell to the ground. You'll get used to it eventually, but when you do, I'm going to increase it for both of you, he replied, grinning. Naruto just struggled to get up. He realized it was going to take a while. Like I said, the first thing I will train the both of you in is taijutsu. I will be experimenting something on the three of you. Experimenting what? Yugito asked, actually glad that she didn't have on what Naruto did. I believe that the body works best when it is fighting naturally, and not when it is forced into a set style. Therefore, for however long I deem necessary, I will simply attack you with the range of styles that I know, and your job is to defend and counter-attack where possible. Eventually you will be able to defend against the range of styles, and your styles will all be different because that is how your body is supposed to move. I think that it will be a very effective way to train. Easy for you to say, Naruto yelled, now very much awake. You're not the one who can't stand up and is going to be attacked by the strongest guy in Konoha. Yugito paled and Minato chuckled. I'm not going to go full out on you, not yet anyway. Well, you better stand up, Naruto. I'm about to start. Nani? Okay, settle down everyone, Iruka called out to the class. He'd had this class for 2 or so years and he knew there was a lot of promise in here. There were 4 standouts, but there were easily 10 that were far above the rest. What else do you expect from clan heirs? The class took a little while to settle but eventually did so. The class was seated as it usually was. Naruto, in between Yugito and Sakura, took the back seat in the middle row, and in the seat next to them sat Shino, Hinata and Kiba. Towards the front, sitting with her new boyfriend, sat Ino, trying to get into Sasuke's lap. They'd been going out only for a few weeks, but nothing was ever enough for her, Sasuke would always be at Naruto's looking for advice in how to deal with it. Just so happens he was the worst person for advice like that, something Sasuke had to learn the hard way. He didn't ever want to think of that day again. Shikamaru and Chuji were on the seat on the other side of Naruto, Sakura and Yugito. The others of the class were also in their normal seats, sitting with their friends and who they hoped would become their teammates after they passed their exams. Today was the Genin exams where they would participate in 4 different exams to determine who passes and who fails. Naruto was confident in his ability. He hadn't been training hard for 4 years to flunk out in a Genin exam. The 4 years during the academy proved to be quite rewarding for Naruto. Not so much the time at the academy itself, but what would happen before and after he attended. He, Yugito and Anko had trained hard every morning with Minato, and he was satisfied with their taijutsu after 2 years of the same thing, every morning. Other things he worked on was building speed and stamina, evasiveness, and their jutsu knowledge. They each knew their affinity or affinities and tended to stick to their own strengths, but they did know some other elemental jutsu. In his spare time, something Naruto was severely lacking, he tried to work on the techniques that his father had left him in the box. So far he had managed to master the Rasengan, and was working on adding elemental chakra to it. He was finding that putting wind-based chakra into it was a lot easier than his water-based chakra was. He had 2 affinities, wind elemental chakra from his father and water from his mother. They each helped out with their respective affinities. The Hiraishi no Jutsu, however, was just as hard, if not harder than it was made out to be. He had followed the advice his father had given him in the scroll and planned to develop his own variant of the technique. He had the idea, he just didn't know how he was going to pull it off. Training with Tsunade had proved more useful than he thought. Not only did she teach him all the medical ninjutsu she knew, but also her taijutsu style, pure and utter destruction. If he used the Kyuubi's chakra, which he had learned to control to an extent, the results were even more devastating. His level in the medic field was somewhere higher than Shizun but lower than Tsunade. He needed a lot more experience before he was at her level. Kakashi had mainly taught him ninjutsu, but also other skills that all ninjas should have, such as stealth and assassination. Kakashi was a jutsu library only bested by the Sandaime Hokage. Not even the Namake's library had as many jutsu as Kakashi knew. Kakashi insisted that Naruto master all the jutsu he learnt though, so he could get the most out of it. It's better to master 1 than no 5, he told him. The chakra cost decreased and eventually he would be able to do it without calling the name out and reducing the amount of hand seals, something Naruto found quite appealing. Yugito had done the same training as Naruto with Minato, and had also done a little bit with Anko and Kushina. She wasn't at the level that Naruto was at, but she was easily the second strongest in the class of students. She had developed her lightning and fire affinities quite well. The fire seemed to be her natural affinity, and lightning, she realized, she received from Nibi. While Kushina couldn't help her in those, she referred to the Namake's library and Kakashi, who had the same affinities and was willing to give her a hand when he could. Slowly but surely Yugito's feelings for Naruto developed into something she was completely unfamiliar with. Nibi had mentioned something about love, but she didn't want to believe the demon. Naruto was a friend, a good friend, and she didn't think there was any more. She had resolved herself to tell Kushina and see what she thought, though she just hadn't got around to it. Sakura had been busy training also. Since she started the academy, her father trained her in taijutsu, kenjutsu and ninjutsu. Her mother had been the one to teach her genjutsu, something she was quite good at. She hadn't found out her elemental affinity. Yamada thought she was a little young and had too low a reserve to be trying to develop it. Instead she opted to learn a range of techniques. Some she was better at than others. She too was nowhere near Naruto's level, but if she were to place herself she would put her at about 4th in the class. The assumed number 3 of the class was Uchiha Sasuke. While him and Naruto had received the same marks for everything, as in perfect, if the two were to have a spar, Sasuke would stand no chance. He had learned of who Naruto was training with, and decided that he would need to train just as hard so he didn't get left behind. He received training from his father and Itachi whenever he was available. The two of them were proud of Sasuke's progress. While nowhere near Itachi's level, he was certainly above average for his age group. The rest of Naruto's friends had also trained with their clans, but not as extensively as the 4 of them had. They were at a decent level for a genin, and they were almost guaranteed to become a part of the 3 teams that would graduate and become real ninja. The only question that remained was, who of the 10 would be the one to miss out? After the class had finally come to attention, Irika decided to proceed. Right, we will now commence this year's genin exams. The exam will be divided into 4 parts. This surprised the children. They all thought there was only 3 parts. They were all curious as to what the 4th was and why it was added. Quiet down! Irika called. It was at that moment that Mizuki, their other instructor, walked into the room holding a stack of papers. Thank you. There will first be a written exam and you will have 1 hour to complete it. The next exam will be announced after this one is completed. There will be no cheating, and if you are caught doing so you will be forced to leave immediately, and have failed this portion of the exam. You must have passed 2 of the first 3 exams to proceed to the final exam, Irika announced before taking half the stack of papers and handing them out to the class while Mizuki handed the rest out. The papers were handed out face down, and all the students sat there eagerly awaiting the start, rather the end of the written test. Everyone knew that this was probably their weakest point. Sakura was quite confident, as was Naruto, Yugito, Sasuke and Shino. Shikamaru was his usual lazy self, and was only going to answer enough to pass the exam before going to sleep. The rest of the class was sweating, worried that they would fail the exam. Finally it came time for the exam to begin and the papers were overturned immediately. There was a lot of sighs of relief from the class when they realized that it wasn't as difficult as they thought it would be. The questions were related to the shinobi code and the general history of Konoha. There were also a few questions that asked what they would do in certain scenarios. The students quickly began writing down their answers, most of them confident that they would be able to pass it. Naruto, however, sat there in complete confusion. There's no way that anyone in this class could answer this. Oh, what the hell? They rigged my test. This must have been Tsunade-sensei and Oto-sensei. He looked back down to his exam and sighed. He did know the answers. He just wished that he'd had the simple one like the rest of them. He reread his questions. Question 1. Identify the most critical points on a human body and label them on a diagram of a human body. Question 2. If in a situation where one of your teammates is kidnapped during a mission, what would you do and does it comply with the shinobi code? If not, which guidelines would you be violating? Justify your response. The questions went on, ranging from medical-related questions to predicting trajectory patterns for projectiles and a range of scenarios in which he had to find a solution for. This was something he wouldn't even expect as a Chunin exam paper. He knew they were testing him to see if he had picked up on what he had been taught, and he was determined not to fail them. He quickly got to work, trying to be as accurate as possible. Do you think he's figured it out yet? Tsunade asked Minato. She, Minato, Kushina and Shizen were all sitting in the kitchen in the Namikaze's main house talking about what they had done to sabotage Naruto's exams, to see if he had learned everything he needed to. Minato chuckled a little bit. Yeah, I'd say he has. But knowing Naruto, he'll just do it. You know he won't give up on something just because it's a little hard. He replied. I'm sure Naruto will pass the exams. Shizen said. She had helped teach Naruto, and watched him surpass even her in the 4 years that he had been under Tsunade's wing. She was quite proud of him, and knew that a genin exam, even if it was dodgy, wasn't going to be a problem for him. Of course not, I just want to see how he goes, Kushina said. She was a little concerned that they were being a little harsh on her son, and that he really would fail. She knew that he was one to rise to the occasion, but they were certainly pushing it this time. We can, but not until the tournament at the end. I asked Irika to set it up so I could see how all the students were going and if they were ready. We'll get to see him there, Minato said. The truth was, he just wanted to see how he and Yugito would fare up against the others his age group. He was confident that they would be stronger. He just wanted to know how much stronger. That is if he makes it, Kushina said doubtfully. He will, he's our son, and if he doesn't pass that means he isn't ready. Minato replied, sure of himself. Well, I guess so, Kushina said. Well, we should go and get Anko and Kurenai. I'm sure they'd like to see Naruto do his thing. Minato said as he stood up. I'm sure the two of them would like to see his thing. Tsunade replied innocently. Tsunade! Kushina exclaimed. You know it's true. The way they look at him, always wanting to be around him. Anko still sneaks into his bed. Tsunade replied. She did have a point. Anko and Kurenai's feelings towards Naruto had changed a lot. He was no longer Anko's protector, or Kurenai's groom-to-be. The two of them had developed strong feelings for the boy. Kurenai thought it was a good thing considering she had to marry him anyway, but Anko thought it was wrong. She didn't think she should have feelings like that for someone 7 years younger than her. It felt right, but to everyone else it would seem wrong. The two were close friends but had never discovered that they were both chasing the same guy. Well, it may be true, but do you have to be so blunt about it? Kushina asked. Tsunade sat there in mock thought. Yep, Kushina just shook her head and walked off with her husband. Tsunade laughed, and followed them with Shizen by her side. Pens down, everyone! Irika announced to the class. The time allowed for the written test had ended and everyone, including Naruto, all felt confident after it. They were glad that the theory was over and that the practical was about to begin. Mizuki will now collect all the test papers. After that has been done, everyone will move outside for the next 3 parts of the exams. The next exam that you will all do is an accuracy test. The rules and conditions will be explained when we move outside. Please sit there quietly until the test papers have been collected. As soon as the last test paper was collected, the class erupted in noise. Everyone was asking how their friends went and how confident they all were with the upcoming exams. At the back, Naruto's table was in a discussion of their own. You didn't get the same exam as we did you? Sakura asked Naruto. She got a quick glance at his paper when he turned it over and she immediately could tell that it was a harder exam than what she herself had received, and became worried. Of course I got the same exam as you, why wouldn't I have? Naruto lied. He didn't think there was a need to tell his friends about his dodgy exam papers. He knew who was responsible for it, and he understood their reasoning. They had put a lot of time and effort into him, and they wanted to make sure it was worth it. You're lying, Yugito said simply. Her feelings for Naruto weren't the only thing that changed. She also became a lot more confident and outgoing. Yours was different than ours. Everyone was starting to get up and leave for the next part of the exam. Oh look, we need to go. We don't want to be late, he said. He then got up and ran out the door before either of the girls could say anything more about it. The two of them looked at each other and nodded. The children all filed out of the classroom and made their way to the academy training grounds. It was fairly small with a few trees and about 5 training posts. It wasn't meant for full-out training. Listen up! Iruka called out. Each of you will get 5 kunai and 5 shuriken to throw at the targets. You need 7 of them to pass this portion of the exam. First of all, can I have? Iruka was cut off when they noticed a bloody and beaten Chunin staggering over to the training grounds. He went to call out for help, but it appeared as though his jaw was broken and he couldn't talk. Iruka frantically turned to the students. Sakura and Ami, go and get some help. Ask for medics or transport to a hospital. Go now, he said. No need, called out Naruto. This was what he had been training for years for. He had healed these types of injuries before and was confident he would be fine with it. Sakura, I want you to go and get some towels or cloth to stop the bleeding. Yugito, I want you to go and get some water so I clean the wounds, and Iruka-sensei, keep everyone out of the way. He quickly ran over to the man, well, as quick as one could, wearing weight and gravity seals. The other 3, while a little shocked at how he just took charge, moved off to do what they were asked. He went over to the man and carefully helped him down to the ground. He went through a few hand seals and formed a chakra scalpel. He cut off the man's shirt and jacket so he could properly diagnose the problem. After doing so, he cancelled the technique and went through another set of hand seals. His hands were covered in a green hue and he went about healing the man. He carefully pulled out bits of rocks and metal that was lodged into his wounds and went about repairing the ruptured veins and arteries before going to work on the skin tissue. He briefly looked up when he felt his face being wiped and saw Sakura wiping his sweat away. He smiled appreciatively at her before taking the towel and trying to wipe away the blood from his body to see if he had missed anything. It took about 20 minutes before the man was healed, and after he had double-checked that the man would be alright, he stood up. He'll be fine, he'll still need to go to the hospital though. I'll need you to ask medics to come over with a stretcher and retrieve him. They're on their way, Yugito said. She figured that he would need some medics to retrieve the man when Naruto was done, and sent for them already. He smiled warmly at her. Arigato, Yugito-chan. She smiled sweetly back, something that Naruto absolutely loved about her. Her eyes squinted and she had the cutest little dimples. Okay, Iruka said. He knew that Naruto was getting some training from Tsunade but didn't know just how good he was. The medics quickly came through the training ground with a stretcher in their hands. They talked to Naruto for a little bit before they placed the body on the stretcher and left. Iruka cleared his throat to regain the attention of the class. Now that is taken care of, we will continue on with the exam. If Aburaim Shino would please step up and take these shuriken and kunai. Shino scored 8 out of 10 and rejoined the group. The list went on and on until finally Iruka called out. Namikaze, Naruto, are you alright to do it, Naruto? He was sitting down over to the side. While healing, the man hadn't even scratched his reserves. He needed to take a slight rest anyway. He stood up and nodded. Yeah, I'm right to go, he said before he walked over to Iruka and received his kunai and shuriken. Immediately he felt something off with them, and when he examined one, noticed that the weight and balance were off with them. Naruto smirked. Otosen, how many more games are we going to play here? Naruto called out seemingly to the middle of nowhere. Why, whatever are you talking about, son? Minato replied as he appeared with Kushina, Tsunade, Shizen, Anko and Kurinai. Oh, I wonder, Naruto said. He smirked and lined up with the target ready to throw. Remember, son, what I told you? Yeah? He replied. He figured he knew what he was going on about. A ninja has to use what he has available to him, huh? The rest of the class save Naruto's friends were in awe of Minato's appearance. Hokage-sama came to watch our exams. Most of them thought. Naruto's friends were quite used to his presence, especially Yugito, Sakura and Sasuke. They were still very aware of his power and respectful in his presence, but weren't as wowed as the rest of the class. He checked the wind and tried to find a new balance point for his equipment. He lined it up to where he thought he should for it to hit and threw all of the shuriken at once towards the target. They all hit, but only 2 were in the center. Sasuke sniggered, knowing he could do better. He just didn't know about the faulty equipment. He then lined up the kunai, again factoring in the new circumstances, and threw them. Again they hit the target, but this time they were all relatively close to the center. He smirked victoriously and made his way back over to his friends. He glanced over to his father and saw him nod in his direction and the others smile at him. He smiled back and rejoined his friends. Everyone else went and everyone passed that section of the exams. It wasn't exactly a hard thing to do. However, the only people who got all of them to hit was Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura and Yugito. So far the position of Rookie of the Year was a 4-way tie. The ninjutsu part of the exam was next, and it was something else that not many people had too many issues with. They were asked to perform the Henji no Jutsu, Bunshin no Jutsu and the Kawarini. They had to at least pull off 2 of the techniques successfully, or they wouldn't graduate at all. Everyone was doing well enough, with a few doing all 3 techniques properly, but most only being able to complete the 2. Namikaze, Naruto, Iruka called out. He was willing to pass him just on his performance healing the Chunin, but he knew that Mizuki wouldn't feel the same. While he hadn't said anything about it, he knew that Mizuki had something against Naruto. He stepped up in front of the class to do the techniques. Perform the Henge no Jutsu. You must transform into a shuriken. Wait, what? Surely you can't do that. There must be a mistake. No mistake, Iruka. Minato said. He wanted to see how good his son was and he was intending to mess with his exams every step of the way. I see. Perform the Henge no Jutsu, then the Kawarimi, and then perform the Bunshin no Jutsu, and create at least 3 clones. Iruka sat back in his chair and waited for him to perform the techniques. Naruto simply stood there and was preparing to do the technique when he felt a massive amount of killing intent being aimed straight at him. He looked over to his father, who had his hands behind his back whistling innocently. A ninja has to deal with a range of circumstances and one must be able to calm himself down and perform rationally in all instances. Another thing that his father had taught him since he had been training. He nodded to himself and closed his eyes briefly. He created the Kage Bunshin, making 2 other clones. He opened his eyes and without making any hand seals he and his clones yelled out. Bunshin no Jutsu. Henge no Jutsu. Kawarimi. He figured that Sasuke would try show off by making as many clones as he could, so he thought he would get in first. The whole field was literally covered in his clones, and in his original spot lay a single shuriken and Iruka's table. Everyone gasped in amazement, but there were a few that sighed. Namely his parents, Tsunade, Shizen, Yugito, Kurenai and Anko. Show off, they all thought. Very good, Naruto. You have passed all 3 of your exams and are eligible for the 4th part. Congratulations. Naruto nodded and undid all his clones. He made his way over to his friends. Sasuke snickered in his direction but didn't show him any form of congratulations. His other friends all congratulated him. He then wished Yugito good luck as she made her way up to the front. Again, everyone seemed to pass the exam with good results, and it turned out that everyone was eligible for the last part of the exam. This year a 4th part to your examination has been added. It was by the request of Hokage-sama that this was done. There will be a knockout tournament in which everyone will compete. Every one of you has passed the exams and will receive your hitite at the conclusion of the tournament. This was added to assist in making selections for teams to see whose skills will work well together. There were murmurs of excitement from the children, all wanting to have a fight with their peers and come out victorious. They all quieted down when Minato took a step forward. That's right, in order to make sure we have teams that will work out, I personally would like to evaluate all of your skills. The best way for that is to pit you up in battle. It is my belief that success will only come with teamwork, so if you are placed on an appropriate team to begin with, it makes the process a lot easier. I will be personally refereeing these matches, so without further ado let them begin. Iruka pulled out a piece of paper and said, this is the draw for the tournament. If you lose you are immediately knocked out, and will stand to the side and watch the rest of the matches. There will be no killing here today and your match will be interfered with when we believe it to be over. This is not a fight against your enemy, this is a spar against your peers and you will treat it as such. Now come and see your draw. The tournament had progressed as expected. Naruto hadn't had to face any of his friends, but everyone he did hadn't even stepped in the ring. They knew that Naruto was too strong for them. It was down to the semifinals. It was going to be Naruto against Yugito and Sakura against Sasuke, Namikaze Naruto and Yugito. Would the both of you come forward please? Minato called. He had been impressed by the fights so far and knew what teams he wanted. However, this was the fight that he had been waiting for since the start of it. He knew who would win, but he wanted to see just how far they had come. They both appeared in front of Minato and bowed to him before bowing to each other. Good luck, Yugito-chan. Naruto said as he got into his made-up taijutsu style. The same to you, Naruto-kun. Yugito said as she too got into her made-up stance. They faced each other and waited for Minato to start the match. Minato stood there and smirked at the final test he had for Naruto. Yugito, undo your seals, he said simply. They both rolled up their sleeves, but before they could do anything Minato said. Naruto, what are you doing? I'm undoing what? You expect me to go up against her with those seals still on? Minato grinned. Of course. She's had to battle and you haven't. I think it's only fair. Of course that wasn't his only reason, but almost everyone else seemed to buy it. Not that many of them knew what they were talking about. Naruto grunted in annoyance, and Yugito spared him an apologetic look as she undid her seals. Don't hold back, either of you, Minato said. He wanted to see how they would both go fighting at their best. They nodded back to him and faced him. I asked that everyone viewing stands back for this fight. Move right back. They all did as they were told, thinking it was for the best. Namikaze Naruto versus Yugito. Hajime. He jumped backwards and watched on from a distance. Over in the distance the others watched on eagerly. They were looking forward to this fight. Kurenai and Anko were a little worried. They knew they didn't have to be, but they still didn't want him to get hurt. His mother was also a little worried. She knew what Minato wanted to see and wasn't happy about it. But she was also a little interested to see how far the two had come, and she knew that they would only find out if they went up against each other. Iruka stood with the rest of the students, well aware that this wasn't going to be like the rest of the fights. There was no way this was going to be a fight between two rookie genin skilled ninja. Naruto and Yugito just looked at each other. They didn't want to hurt the other, but they both knew they would be insulted if the other went soft on them. As soon as Minato had left, they both charged forward, Yugito a little faster than Naruto. What's that over there? A blonde girl asked the group she was traveling with. I'm not sure, but it feels like Yugito and Naruto. Let's go investigate. Her red-head insomniac of a brother replied. The others in the group nodded as they made their way to where they felt their friends. What if Naruto has mother figure Tsunade, tsume and harem? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel. And leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.